Oh, I've never actually used that before. Hello, good evening, everyone. It is right at 6 o'clock on Tuesday, March the 26th. We'll officially call this meeting to order. To get us started, we'll start with a roll call. Should we start over here today?
I'm Alex Brewster and I'm student representative.
Charlie Simpson, District 3.
Kylie Goodward, District 1.
Dr. Constance Pedrosa, interim superintendent.
Terrence Proctor, District 4.
Dave Larson, District 5.
And welcome to all of our guests joining us in person and online. So grateful for you being here this evening with us. So to kind of ground us in how we have committed to being in space together today, I'll read our agreements from Courageous Conversations, which are to stay engaged, experience discomfort and be vulnerable, speak your truth, and expect and accept non-closure. We at the Tukwila School District acknowledge that the land where we teach, collaborate, learn, and play is the traditional land of the first people of Seattle, the Duwamish and Muckleshoot people, past and present, and honor with gratitude the land itself and the Duwamish and Muckleshoot tribes. As a public school district, we have a responsibility for the stewardship of this land, and we strive to work alongside the Duwamish and Muckleshoot people who have been living and working here since time immemorial. We further acknowledge that the burden of environmental exploitation and systemic injustice falls upon the labor of Black and brown bodies in the building of this country and its institutions. We remember that Black and brown people were born and died working this land against their will for generations. We also acknowledge the continued contribution of the labor of survivors over the centuries to today of all immigrant labor, including voluntary, involuntary, trafficked, forced, and undocumented peoples in the building of what we refer to as the United States. As a school district leadership, we pledge to recognize and work against systems that have historically and currently enforced and create inequities among the people we serve. Now I'll invite those who are willing and would like to join us to salute the flag, which there's also one over there, so wherever I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so we'll move to approve tonight's agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, it is approved. So with that, well, so excited to be at Tukwila Elementary today. So I'll hand it over to you.
Hello and welcome to Tukwila Elementary. Ooh, that one got me good. Slide over.
Oh, yeah, sounds great.
That's okay. My brain's a being lady. If I can start with the video, we had originally planned for kids to come and show you our robotics program. Miss Rice is just so amazing with what she does with technology, and then we have a really rigorous like news channel that the kids do all on their own. So we won't play the whole thing, but just like 2 minutes of the kids kind of walking you through some of the things that they do, and then I can go into the presentation. The reason why I wanted to show that video is because Miss Bright starts from kindergarten, where she starts making them build all these little things that you don't think mean anything. So by the time they're in fourth grade, they're using 3D printers, they're making circuits. And when I go in there and I observe her lesson, I'm like, oh, you can actually put this stuff together and explain in detail, you know, how these circuits come together to make this electronic feature. So I really wanted you to see like the level of depth that, you know, some of these kids are so excited to engage in STEAM, and she's just done such an amazing program. What I did is I kind of started off with the districts, you know, here, high expectation, excellence for all, engaged learners, relationships, equity and empathy, and that's really the driving force behind what we do here at Tukwila Elementary, is trying to take that and then just embody it into our school. When I was going through, I love pictures, so when I was going through a lot of what we did this year, something I realized is it had a pattern. That's the next picture. And a lot of our pattern is, one, we're extremely diverse, and that's no surprise to anyone, but then I couldn't fit in all of our languages. So what I did is I tried to pick the top ones, and when you go outside and talk to some of the kids, like they actually will say hello or a phrase or two in some of other kids' languages, because they develop from each other, because the teacher's trying to use little bits of languages with them. So here at Tukwila Elementary, we practice a lot of exploratory learning, hands-on. We practice a lot of collaborative learning. We have different ways of showing our learning. And we celebrate and support each other's learning. We practice cross-subject learning. We celebrate spirit days, twins, and we're inclusive in all spaces, including our LRC2 and LRC3 students. We're creative and definitely tech savvy. And we are engaged and excited about learning. And don't forget, we are very athletic here, very competitive, #winners. And we value building character traits alongside our academic successes. So welcome back board to Tukwila Elementary, home of the best and the brightest. And kind of giving you a breakdown, we're very, very proud of what we saw from iReady, but after sharing iReady, like I kind of want to share something a little bit different that we did this year that kind of helped ground us and just direct us in, we see numbers, but numbers are not always everything, and iReady is just one part of what we do. So our original goal when we went into this is we didn't want to let go of continuing to build on our comprehension, and last year, rather than focus on iReady, wide, we just honed in on literacy, focusing on our comprehension, because that's where we struggled the most last year, and it showed again, although when it showed up this time, I want to point out that we were about a 10% increase higher at the start than we were last year. So our goal was to go by just 25%. And the reason why I always make sure our percentages from one point to the other is kind of small is we want to achieve, we want to succeed, and we want to celebrate, and then we want to come back and create another goal so that we're able to then achieve rather than making a huge, 80% growth by blah, blah, blah. Like this is something attainable and achievable. Now, our second round of iReady, so we started at 25%, and when we did our winter iReady, we reached 40%. So we grew 60% over what we expected to grow. So we were really happy to see that. And a big part of that was because of what we did with our PDs this year, the inclusive practice, our PLCs, and really our data analysis. We were cycling through. Nothing is ever perfect, but I do know we had a lot more consistency going into this year than we did last year. For our iReady math, in a similar place. So again, we wanted to grow by 25%. We started at 13% and we ended up achieving a 35%, which means we grew at 160%. And I'll be very honest, I didn't expect that we would make that level of growth. I think we were all anticipating that we would grow at a higher rate in literacy than we were in math. But what we also recognized was the majority of the school is actually piloting the same curriculum in math, which is iReady. So we're assuming and thinking that might be a part of the reason why we grew more in math. Another reason that was a surprise is because a lot of the PDs and things that we're doing is literacy based, but I think maybe some of the inclusive practices that we're doing in literacy really went into math a lot better than we assumed, but we were super happy to see that we grew at 160%, which is again, like very proud and happy to see that number. And it also shows that, not only did we attain the goal that we originally set forth, but we surpassed it, and now we go back and we're not done yet. We have another period of time that we have the opportunity to go back into iReady, so we're excited to see what the next level of growth looks like.
Congratulations.
Now, this one I was really excited about. So our school has a very high, almost 50% of our students are MLL and Gen Ed students. What we noticed is when you look at the difference in our MLL students and the growth that they made, that's 66%, and our non-MLL students, they made 57%, and this is just typical growth. Our MLL students are actually outperforming our Gen Ed students by about a 50% difference, which is again a better place to be in than last year when our MLL students, not only were they underperforming, but it was by a large margin. So to see just such a close proximity between the two, regardless of which one is outperforming, it's just a baseline to see that we're closing a big gap right there. And then the one that made me the happiest was our special education students. And so this year we went through that cycle of OSSI grants. And one of the reasons why we had to go through that is because our special education population, our students were below the threshold, that 2-point-something threshold. And what we did this year, a part of the PD and professional development and teacher collaboration was really focusing on our special education students and our MLL students, and our strategies were targeted towards them. So when we took our second round of iReady to see that our special education students were performing again, outperforming our Gen Ed students at 77% versus our general education students that are 73%, Again, it doesn't matter between top one and the other, the fact that that gap is so small, and we actually have our students that need the most help that are in a really good place in terms of physical growth. And a 5%, difference in terms of growth was something that, we're moving in the right direction, and what we're doing is working. We just need to double down and continue to fine tune what we're doing. So that has been working for us. I believe that the monthly PLC connections, we've really fine tuned them. Again, nothing is perfect, and we're gonna continue to work on them and get them to, the highest level we can. But our monthly PLC connections, and I connect with the teachers as well. That's where we unpack data. That's when we have conversations about, what's going on, why are we here, what do we need to do, our action plans. And it's been a journey from last year to this year, but it's just been an incredible, consistent thing that we've had going all year. We've also really hyper-fixated on building core instruction this year, because we have more students that need tier 3 instruction than we have the capacity to serve them. So when that happens, that means we need to fix something in core instruction, so we don't have to pull out so many students to receive intervention services. So a lot of the PDs we did this year were MLO based, inclusive training, small group instruction. And again, this is just one step, like we're gonna continue to fine tune, but just focusing on how can we build our core instruction so that students are being served in the classroom at a more rigorous, higher rate than relying only on, interventions to do the job. Data analysis, I think, again, is a really big one. When we did our first round of iReady, we unpacked that data. We also use more than iReady. We use DIBELS. We also use our math assessments, and we use FMP. And what that does is it gives us another source of data, and it allows us to compare, does iReady accurately reflect what's happening in the classroom? And I think that was a big part of the conversation we had this year is, yes, iReady does reflect to an extent what we're seeing in the classroom, but also no, it does not. And when that happens, it allowed us to, DIBELS allows us to analyze and break down phonics and phonemic awareness at a better rate than iReady does. So now we know what those specific strategies and skill sets that they need are, and we group kids and we work on that so that the next round of iReady, we're already working on things that if iReady wasn't able to identify, this other data point was able to identify. And last, we are doing this year something called scope and sequence development, and it's really just for our school, and what it is a way to try to create some form of alignment across grade levels. And each grade level has their own scope and sequence, and our main focus is really on literacy, because math, we have iReady and that coming around the corner. So with with literacy and writing, every grade level each month has been working on a scope and sequence to work on for the next month, and that's their point of alignment on this is what we're all teaching, this is what we're all working towards, and fine tuning it each month as they go. And the hope behind that is once it's completed this year, then next year you go back to it, you fine tune it, you already have the data, like a whole thing ready. If a new teacher comes in, they have something to pick up and continue to work on. And, just hoping that this will bring some form of alignment across grade levels. But I think those are some of the things that really helped us this year. Questions?
I just wanted to add something to your list. So the state has this thing called Washington School Improvement Framework, which they use to measure how students are doing across the different schools in the state. And typically, in 1 year, there's about a quarter of the schools are identified as an improvement in some way or form. It's an interesting index because it's not just about proficiency, it tends to be more about growth, which you just had a whole bunch of things about growth, which is great, because I think that's by far the most important thing. And typically we've had in this district, typically 4 of our schools are typically in improvement, but this last year, Technical Elementary got out of improvement. And the reason was that for a lot of the things that you just outlined here, and my favorite subject, which is growth. I mean, we were in there because there was some set of students, and the other thing about this index is that it's not just about everybody, it's about each disaggregated group. And so, and particularly for us, the MLO group is such a large group of ours. And so the growth numbers, when I was looking at it for them, for the last couple of years, and the other thing about this index is it goes across multiple years, it's not just 1 year, so you don't just get a good 1 year and then. And so, anyway, I just want to congratulate y'all and for getting out of that, because it's, that's a really, it's not an easy thing to do, and I think, you know, as you've indicated, you're going in the right direction, and you just go ever higher and higher, but. Anyway, that was a really good achievement. We need to kind of figure out how to take some of the things that you have learned and transfer them to some of our other elementary schools. I mean, there's some differences, but I think there's a lot to be learned. So anyway, great job.
Yeah, I just want to kind of echo that, just congratulations. I think it's certainly a testament to your leadership and then just the amazing work of the team here at Temple Elementary. Because that type of progress couldn't be made right without the collective team. You know, I think every time I've had the opportunity to be in space with you, I've just been captivated by the wisdom and the thoughtfulness, the intention that you really bring to your role as a leader in the district. So I'm so grateful for that you are here and doing this amazing work. So thank you. So.
You see, I want to kind of, you talked with the robotics, it's interesting. I mean, I follow a lot of what's going on at the state level, and there's a lot of discussion about, you know, how do we get computer science and that kind of thinking into the curriculum, and a few people are citing, you know, we need to start at kindergarten, and that's what you're describing, what Ms. Rice is doing, and I know it's going on in some of our other schools too. Is teaching, you know, you can't actually teach students in kindergarten to start those skills and start building on it and building on it and building on it. And, you know, that's one of the things I hope we can continue, because we now have, you know, had for a number of years a really good robotics team at Foster High School. And, you know, I talked with Mr. Shaman, who's the leader up there, and one of the things we need, it becomes really powerful when we start building at the elementary schools and then go to the middle school and the high school. It's one of those things that builds and gets more and more powerful. So that's, you know, that's been a great program here for a number of years, but you know, it's something that's not done at a whole lot of schools around the state. And so, you know, another good job.
Thank you. All right. So moving on to the next item on the agenda is an opportunity to recognize the Citizens Levy Committee. So
Hi, so what I'm gonna do, I'm standing up, because what I'm gonna do is make you stand up, when I call your name. So first of all, I have a little speech prepared because I'm so, but I really want this to be heartfelt. One is when I came on board, I was told, Hansi, you know, there's a levy committee, and I'm like, what? But I learned so much. I'm just gonna say, I learned so much from this group. One, I learned about community. I learned about Tukwila. I learned about volunteerism, and I learned about dedication to the kids from all of you. So I said, we had to honor you because you did so much. And I'll just say a little bit for people who don't know what this committee did. First of all, there's two leaders, and I'm gonna make you stand up first. So I'm gonna ask Pat Larson, you're already standing, so please raise your hand. And Riley. Leaders in the very beginning, they're the ones that started planning, thinking about the timeline, what needed to happen, fundraising, and then creating schedules and actually poking me a little bit on the side, saying, Hansi, why don't you do this? But it was a loving, gentle poke, because it was really helpful for me to kind of see what was done in the past, learn what was done in the past, and figure out how to support it. And so I thank you both so much, because you did such amazing work, and I learned through this process, and I can't even imagine if I ever had to do this again without you, honestly, but that's for a later date. I know Pat's looking around like, oh my gosh. But I want to share something that we wrote. So I just want to say that I want to take a moment to extend a heartfelt thank you to the members of the YES Committee for their incredible dedication to a recent levy measure, which, by the way, we passed. So can everyone say for and Riley's, but I call your name, please stand, so everyone can see the dedication of everyone here. So Paul and Kathy Polbitz, Sarah Valier, did I say it right? Baloo, I didn't hear it, Catherine Doan, Alan Eckbert. There you are, Alan. Papian. Evelyn Morris. Jonathan. Right, Kate Brewer. And Papola. By the way, loaned us their house every time for the meetings and provided snacks. Sharon Nakata. And Madison Martin. Well, and I just want to thank you so much for your hard work. Your commitment was pivotal in the success of the campaign. We couldn't have done it. Honestly, I don't think we could have done it without you. I also want to thank the Tukwila School District staff, teachers, and union leaders for their full support with donations, volunteering, doorbelling, handing up signs along with this committee. Because this committee, they're out there at 7 in the morning, 8 in the mornings, every Saturday. And your unwavering support ensures that we can continue providing a quality education our students deserve. And on behalf of at least the Tukwila School District, I just want to thank you so much. And I want to make sure to pass it to President Major.
I just want to add just a few things, you know, when I look around folks that are standing, sort of had the pleasure of getting to know a little bit. You know, I see people that are so committed to serving this community, right? I see council members, current and past, mayors, school board members, right? And past principals, right? So many people have dedicated so much time to this district. And so not just this levy election that you worked so tirelessly for, but you've come in the elections before and before that and before that. This community is better because of you all, and our scholars are better because of you all. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. So now moving on to our public comment portion of the agenda. So as always, there are multiple ways with which you can offer public comment. You can always email written public comment prior to the board meeting. You can give public comment in person or virtually. We only have a few in-person public comments. Thank you. We'll start with you.
Okay. Hi, I'm Edna Morris, community member. When the school board was faced with the task of finding a superintendent to meet the needs of the Tukwila School District, we were aware it needed to be someone willing to make the necessary changes that had held us back, changes that would allow for growth and would provide an environment in which both students and staff could flourish and have the educational opportunities they deserve. We would need a leader willing to surround themselves with other strong, insightful people, a leader willing to make tough decisions to allow the Tukwila School District to thrive. When interviewing Dr. Pedroza, she reflected several times about how hard situations were, which caused me to hold reservations about her being the leader we were in need of. If she felt situations were hard, was she up to the serious challenges we knew would continue to come and the needs that would be imperative to address? After working with Dr. Pedroza, I have come to realize she recognizes challenges, and yes, they are hard, but they are challenges that she is extremely capable of handling and finding solutions that best meet the needs of our district. She involves her staff in decision-making. She truly listens and responds to the needs of the district and individuals. She nurtures an environment in which people feel valued. We, as a district, are fortunate to have Dr. Pedroza as a leader. She has proven herself to be someone who definitely does not shy away from hard. She is resilient, a progressive thinker, proactive, and an asset to Tukwila School District. Thank you.
Thank you, Edmund. All right, next up is Danielle.
Sorry, I'm nervous. Okay, my name is Danielle Easton. My daughter is a kindergartner here at Tukwila Elementary School. Last week, while I was outside with the kids during recess, I noticed that there was a stranger freely walking around, in the recess area. I notified a staff member who went to speak with a stranger who left without an issue, luckily. My question is, why isn't there safety fencing around the back and the sides of the recess area with no trespassing signs? Or at least during school hours or after the, after school activity, children leave. Students enter and exit the main building during recess to use the restrooms, easily allowing a stranger to gain access to the students' classrooms or restrooms. Why is the front entrance of the building secure, but not the outdoor areas? Today, I was made aware that a few times that high school students have gained access to the inside of the building from the outdoor recess area. I've also been made aware that there's been occupied tents in the tree line area back here behind, that staff members have come across while retrieving balls for the kids while they're outside playing. Background checks are necessary to work and volunteer with the students inside while strangers are walking freely amongst the children and potentially and actually entering the building where other students are, and the restrooms are right there. I just would like to get something figured out with that as far as signage, fencing to deter people from freely walking around outside and with the children and then breaching the inside of the building. Also, I wanted to see if it was possible or what steps would need to be done to get fire ladders for the 13 classrooms that are upstairs. There's 13 classrooms upstairs plus the teacher's lounge, and they have no way other than the stairways to exit the building. So I've also read on the Washington Office of Superintendents of Public Instruction website that there may be grants available to help with the cost of these things. So I look forward to hearing from you guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Deputy Rosa, are you, just something that you can look into?
Yeah.
All right, so
I have
we'll
the
go back
notes
to us.
here, and actually go ahead and go through that.
All right, next we have Jessica Hoffman.
Okay, hi, my name is Jessica Othman. I'm the current PTA president of this elementary school. My daughter goes to the school and will continue going to school in this district, so I would like to at least try and make sure that changes being implemented will be beneficial for all. So with that said, and all that's been going on, and the district's current standing, I do have a few questions for the board that I hope I can get some answers to. And so my questions stem from the board of directors philosophy for the 2023-2024 school year. So in the budget philosophy number 8, it says reductions will be made first to programs in which there is clear evidence that they are not as effective in supporting the district's mission statement as other programs. What will be the determining factors in deciding which programs will be deemed not as effective? Will we be notified in advance when these reductions are going to be made and which programs these will be? And if so, what will the time frame be between announcing the reduction and putting them into place? I just don't want it to be another champions issue where people are told last minute, because that was not good. And I have sort of the same question for number 11. It says reductions will be made in areas with less impact on students who do not speak English as a native language. So what areas will these be exactly, and how will these reductions be decided? Will the affected families be involved in these decisions, and if so, how? And then number 9 states partial reduction of the programs will be made, but if analysis shows the reduction will render the program ineffective, fully removing or restoring the programs will be considered. Again, what will be the determining factors in removing these programs? You know, I don't know if any of you have students that are currently in this district, but I would like to at least know that the people who are making these decisions are empathetic to the community and they are actually going to take into consideration who they're really affecting and not just looking at the numbers. So yeah, thank you.
And we're gonna email those questions?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that'd be good, thank you.
Next is Brandon Easton.
Hi, I'm Brandon Eastman. I have a kindergartner going to school here, and first, and I think most importantly, I wanted to thank Dr. Pendroza for, we came several months ago to talk about Wi-Fi situation. There's been a lot of work going into that and your responsiveness to that and willingness to keep pushing through to find a solution for that. It's not there quite yet, but we're almost there. So that was really, really encouraging. And the tech services team that's been doing a lot of it too. A lot of emails I've been on there too, so that's been really cool. Another part of the story of this is, I'm gonna ramble for a second, but basically I've been in and around Tukwila for a number of years, and I never realized until my daughter started going to school here that we live in a small town, and it's a small town that, you know, when I started watching the school board meetings, the first thing I saw was, I think that's the guy that gives out the full-size candy bars at Halloween. And I was like, that guy's gotta be pretty cool. And then, when Director Simpson joined, I was like, I'm not sure, but I think that guy's my neighbor. Like, I mean, and you start talking to more and more people in the schools and all the different connections. And it's a small town, but it's right next to Seattle. It's right next to Seattle. It has way more diverse than a lot of small towns. And there's a lot of obligations and responsibilities that come with being part of that small town, and the schools being such a hub for that community of that small town. And so the issue of last time, sort of the idea that being responsible from bell to bell is sort of, from nobody that I've talked to, feels like that's adequate for what the school is in this community. And I'm not trying to like bring up old stuff from last meeting, but with these decisions that are being made with the budget and stuff, I just hope that those considerations, these choices impact that are made between the bells, these families and the community in general. So I just kind of wanted to get that off of my chest a little bit. Another thing that came up at the last school board meeting at Thorndike was the issue with substitute teachers. And I believe Director Proctor said that that's usually a morale issue. Why are the teachers calling out so much? That could be a morale issue. I've talked to past and current staff members, and many of them, the substitute teacher thing is a huge deal. I've seen it in the schools. Everybody's scrambling to try and figure out who can cover what. And one thing that's a solution that could help morale and feel more supported in the schools would be to have people from the administration building that have teaching certificates step in when able to fill some of those spots. And I think that would go, you were asking last time at Thorndike about, well, we gotta figure something out. I think that's something I've heard. It's not my idea. I don't know who has teaching certificates at admin. Like, I don't know any of that, but that's something that I've heard over and over again. So that's pretty much all I've got. So thanks again.
All right, that is all of the in-person. Is there anyone online? Okay, thank you all so much for being here and for offering your. All right, so we'll move now to the reports, starting with the student representative.
I'm gonna run it in the report, so this is where my March here on the board, edited. We did to the March public works, and I also helped out with it to review. And over maybe the past month, I've been working on applications for the student advisory board. We did out like and today how set up and we would adopt the our first advisory meeting, and we also need to do some survey. Everyone.
Which is when?
Which is Wednesday, the first Wednesday. of the month.
April third.
Yes.
At what time?
8:30.
And where?
Online.
Online.
Online, huh?
Any other questions?
All right, so I have my report. So yes, thank you, Alex. He's been really great about checking in. We have a lot of stuff happening, but first I want to thank the parents and staff who engaged in the parent-teacher conferences early in the month. There's just so much work that happens behind the scenes from the school level, the principal and the teachers to get ready for those conferences. So, and I know that parents really appreciate that. Just to give an update on the building closure, we now have word that we will be starting a phase-in move-in in April, mid-April. We expect to have everyone fully in there by the end of April. Whether or not we have furniture is yet to be seen, but we'll have offices and spaces. There we go. We said, we'll just take a table. I'll take a table. I also want to thank our health update. We had our vaccination clinic last Thursday. Odessa Brown, once again, partnered with the district. We administered 111 vaccinations. So that was great to our students. And I also want to thank Foster High School for supporting the effort. Just gratitude to the incredible education support staff early in the month. We had, it was just a celebration to honor them for all the work that they do in service to our students. Just to share out, we are actually our dual language enrollment. We are building up our dual language enrollment. The lottery was held. And all the parents that have been accepted into the program were notified, and we now have a wait list for dual language, everybody. How about that? And then just a reminder, enrollment continues for Tukwila School District. So if you know people, please ask them to go to the schools or the district admin office for enrollment forms, and we'll be glad to assist. Just to share an update from last month's SRO vote. I, as well as Principal Parker, Principal Christopher, and Chief Grover met early last week, and we did some planning together about what that's gonna look like. We are planning the conversation, Principal Parker's leading that, and then we will be planning what does that look like to bring back into the building for fall. Just want one shout out for Cascade View. They have a big Disney play coming, The Lion King, and it will be at Foster High School on Wednesday at 7 p.m. Wednesday, April 3rd at 7 p.m. and all are welcome. I'm sure they would love to have people there. Also, families, please note that the end of the trimester is April 1st, and the week after that, on April 8th to 12th, is our spring break. School will resume on April 15th. I want to personally thank Cascade View PTO and the district's parent advisory committee for greeting me so warmly and talking with me about budget and giving me a history of the organizations and asking me really tough questions in those meetings. It was wonderful getting to know you, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again and attending more parent events. And then I just want to make a big kudos to our family liaisons who took initiative this year to plan some major family events. And the reason why I say this is they were nervous to do this, and they did such a great job. And they were really trying to think through how to support our newest families into Tukwila School District and really provide them supports and technical supports this year in a loving way. Just want to give one more shout out, lots and lots of information on our Tukwila School District Instagram and Facebook page. So please check it out and sign up. And I know all the good stuff that's happening in Tukwila is on there, so please check it out.
I was talking about the dual language, you said there's a wait list, is that, so last year we started with kindergarten, this year is gonna be those
First
kindergarten will be first grade.
Yeah.
So is this wait list for the kindergarten or,
Kindergarten.
Okay.
Yeah,
how, was there any dropout between the?
I can get that data. for
Okay, I mean,
you.
presumably,
Yeah.
over time, there may be some
Yeah.
openings,
Yeah, that does happen.
but then the question is, can people come in the middle?
I think they can in the early grades, but not, it's hard to
At some
know
point,
the
yeah.
grades. Yes, but if they want to, it's a little bit more easier,
Right,
but,
okay.
yeah, but I'll find out for the first grade, but we already have a dedicated teacher for that first grade program as well, so. yeah. It's all good stuff.
All right, we'll start with our director reports. Director Rushing, you might kick this off.
So, I did go to, mentioned earlier, the Foster High School has a robotics team that they've had for about 2 years now, and they competed this year in the regional competition, which took place at Auburn High School and Sammamish High School. And just to let people know, there's, of all the high schools in the state, there's only about 10% that actually have robotics teams that compete in this program. So the fact that you go to the program means you're kind of in the elite group right off the bat. The program it's interesting. I recommend you go see it because it's kind of a cross between a basketball game and a science fair. It's very intense. I mean, they spend all day Saturday and Sunday for 2 weekends and to prepare for it. If you ever go in the late winter and you go by Foster High School, you'll see Mr. Shaman's room, usually lit up with lights because he and the students, and they have a mentor from Boeing and some other community mentors as well. So it's a pretty intense program, and it's extraordinarily well run by the first robotics group. But anyway, this year they finished, I think, in the regional that they were competing about 86 out of 147, so in the middle. But again, it's a phenomenal experience for the students because they have to. There's 15 students and they're working together as a team. They split up responsibilities, and it's the amount of experience they get in kind of what I call work-related situations where you have to work together and work with other teams is pretty outstanding. So anyway, congratulations. They won't go on to the next level this year, but congratulations for all the students and the group who's worked on that. Dr. Pedrosa and I went to the first meeting of the Roadmap project. So the Roadmap was a project that was formed years ago. It's the 7 South King County districts. So, us in Renton and South Seattle and Auburn and Kent and Federal Way and missing Pilot. And that project it was originally the school districts working together on common services for students that we kind of all kind of serve in the south end of King County. It kind of went a little bit dormant, I think, during COVID. It's now starting to come back with a new organization. One of the neat things about it is the convening that they have. And this is now going to be quarterly. We haven't had this for so many years, but it's not just the school districts, but it's all the community-based organizations that are around it. So it's an outstanding networking opportunity. I talked to some people that are working in kind of early parent programs, and I know Dr. Joseph talked to some other folks, and there's some really excellent programs by a group that does public speaking with students, and so anyway, it's a great place, and I'm glad they're kind of cranking up again. So when we think about, as we're thinking about how to deal with our budget situations and looking at community organizations, that's a really good place to go to connect up with all those folks. I did, let's see, want to talk a little bit. Oh, okay. Well, before I do that, so the other, I went to the Foster History Department, got a kind of a poster session where the assignment for the students was to take some event, kind of post-Civil War and World War II, and do some research on it and do a presentation on it. So they had kind of what we call a poster walk, where students, it was things like, it could be the baseball, it could be the first Black person in Jackie Robinson in baseball. It's the Tacoma riots in 1885, I think it was, related to Chinese folks. And so they just picked something and they did a lot of research and did a presentation on it. So I thought it was really good. The students got the opportunity to, work up a presentation and present it to not only the other students that were coming through, but some of the adults that came through as well. So it's a way of kind of breathing some life into history in ways that typically you don't get if you're just reading the books. And it's also a way to kind of relate it. A lot of students pick things that were interest, maybe as part of their family history or something. There was all that. So that was really good. I also was able to, I have an old friend from graduate school at the University of Washington, who's a professor in college of pharmacy back at the University of Illinois. He came out to visit me and he came in, he actually works in kind of finding diversity opportunities for the University of Illinois or University of Illinois, Chicago. And he came in and talked to Mr. Renz's biotech classes about career possibilities and interest in science. And so that was, I think, really helpful to some of the students some ideas about how they might want to pursue a career in science. And the last thing I did want to talk just a bit about what I talked about on the elementary, the fact this program that the state has called the Washington School Improvement Framework, which it's a combination, just to give you an idea. It's not just about the proficiency on the test, it's more about growth on the test, and it also includes other factors like attendance, like dual credits, like graduation rates. So it's a composite index of all those things, and it kind of went dormant again during COVID, but it has come back now. And the thing about it is that about a quarter of the schools in the state are in this kind of what you call improvement status. I was a little bit involved in the development of it, and one of the things that I wanted to make sure that happened was, if you're going to start doing this kind of rating of schools, that you actually put some resources into the schools that are maybe working with more challenging demographic. And so they did that. Unfortunately, the amount of money they put is relatively small. So we have, our schools are getting like, $30,000 to $50,000. I think SAU is getting 50, and Shoulders maybe getting 30 or something. So it's what they call OSSI, I think. I know I refer to it, which probably now that you're out of that, you won't get that next year, but anyway, it's a good thing. But it's a start, an attempt of when you're using, assessment for things, that you start using growth and you start looking at breaking it down, not just by overall, but each individual group. And so schools can't kind of say, well, we're doing well, except our Black students are doing well, they're going to get caught in this one. And so, and it does introduce some money, which is helpful. So it's a start. And so it's interesting when I was, one of the things when I was looking at some of the details of, they look at growth numbers, and I pointed out, talking about Tyndall Elementary has some superior growth numbers, which is, that's how you get out of, that's how you increase proficiency, that's how you get out of this, is by superior growth. And the other thing that was striking, one of the measures they have is attendance. And so the attendance is, what percentage of your students are absent more than twice a month? And, again, if you look at Tyndall Elementary, it's like only less than 10% are absent a lot, or that. And, that's, kind of goes back to common sense. Well, if you show up, then you'll get the instruction. And part of the schools are at like 60%, so they're considerably lower. So when you look at that, you kind of say, well, okay, let's try and figure out why, students are not, are coming to school here on a pretty regular basis, not at a, and it's a complicated, you have to really go deep into the analysis. But anyway, it's something that struck me just immediately when I was looking at and the other thing they used is what's called EL progress. And so that's the percentage of MLL students that are actually showing, progress that's going to get them out of the ELL status is a pretty interesting measure. you know, one of the encouraging thing is that the school that's doing the best in that category is actually Cascade View. So, you know, some of these things are kind of leading indicators. If you see some of those things moving and you can keep them at that level over time, you will grow out of these things. So there's a variety of encouraging. Kind of the discouraging thing was Showalter kind of went down to one of the lower levels. The schools are rated from 1 to 10. I think Showalter's like 1.8 or something. So, you know, we need to start looking at what's going on there. And, you know, one of my big things about Showalter is always we need to have a systemic look. So what's going on in the elementaries goes to Showalter and all that. But anyway, it's an interesting, and we still have, you know, these gaps, these achievement gaps between white Asian students and Black and Latin students. So it's another thing we need to work on. But it's a little a broader range of data, and it's interesting to delve down and to provide some ideas about where to go look. So anyway, but the big celebration was Tukwila Elementary pulled out of that status and for some good reasons, and so hopefully we can get that. So I think that's it for me. Thanks.
Well, I don't have much to report. I feel like a middle school student. She took my ass. I was happy to report that the vaccination with 111, 34 kids. Shout out to everybody that helped. Connection. No. I know, yeah, that's, in middle school, you say she took my ass. I'm excited, but I'm hoping to be able to work with you all and the principals with the SRO issue.
Yeah.
And I did come prepared, I don't know if it's important, but certainly see, Thorndike's principal. 150. They painted yellow, so there's no parking. And then it's time to get out of school, there's cars parked on both sides. There's a double yellow line, so you can't go around them, and you can't get through. So I'm concerned about the safety issue. And of course, I live at the end of the road, like, so you're leaving your house to go down, you can't get out, you can't get in. And I'm concerned because there's some people just jumping out of their cars, leaving the run, and going to get the kids. And I know they used to have, I said, they could see had a couple of cops out there, times path, et cetera, but I was wondering, are you all having any safety issues, any problems? Or I know it's painted yellow, I know it says no parking, but now they're parking on both sides, so you can't get up or down the street in that let out or good morning hours. So I want to work with you and see if we can provide not only a solution to keep traffic moving, make sure everybody's safe, because if something happens, it's already too late. Yeah. And we're neighbors, so we're in it together. Yeah. That's all I have to report.
So just a few things, we've, held interviews for the candidates for District 2, and we're gonna make a decision and move forward with an appointment, within the next week. Dr. Mendoza and I are working on, getting going some coffee with Concy and Carly, with, the intent just to kind of, I know it just works out that it just works out.
Come on, Jeanette, go get it.
Bring Charlie in, you know, really just, hoping to create some more consistent, more casual ways to connect, with people, about, you know, whether it's concerns or you just wanna come and hang out. You know, for the most part, like, you know, oftentimes you see us in these particular capacities, but, you know, we're fully human beings and wanna, you know, meet you in your full humanity as well. So just wanna create some space for that. So excited to get those going, keep an eye out for those. Did anybody else before get a bunch of emails from some students in the human geography class? Okay, so I haven't yet responded. I was curious if that was for the folks. I haven't responded, but I'm very interested. There are a lot of very interesting creative questions that I got from the folks in that class. So some students from Gloucester High School. And then, you know, I think just wanted to speak a little bit without without moving too much into, responding to anything or, speaking too much about the budget thing, but just this recognition that what we're going through is hard and complicated and nuanced, right? And everybody is feeling the weight and the impact of the decisions that are having to be made right now. And so I say that to say, part of, the work I've been, doing in service to the district is just trying to hold space as much as I can, for our leaders who are having to think about really hard decisions. And then I also, with that, want to extend an invitation, that I am open to connecting with anyone, and holding space for you, in the midst of everything. So just wanted to.
I'll just piggyback off of that. So after we went to Thorndike and I got to hang out with the principal and with Scott, we were there talking to parents, after last, finding out about the champions and the different things that was there. So, you had your parents that could afford it, it was okay, and then those that couldn't, who was gonna struggle and try to find it, just discussing the real world things that are happening. So, I would agree that at this time, business as usual, that's been done in the past, can't be done. So we're doing the best. Yeah. So. That's it.
All right, so we'll now move to legislative update.
So, legislature is finished, what happens kind of for 30 days after legislature is the governor gives a chance to sign bills or veto or things like that. So he's been signing most of the bills that have been coming across his desk. So just to give you a quick highlight, there's on the list here, you see at the bottom, there's a whole bunch of ones that died that didn't make it. The biggest one that was disappointing for us was the doubling the lap high poverty, which did not make it. That would have been about $1 million for us, but that one didn't make it. But I'm not giving up on that one. That's going to come back next year. But in terms of what did happen, the first one, they did pass a little bill to give us a little more allocation for paraprofessionals. But our chief financial officer did a little analysis. That's maybe like $80,000 for us this year. They increased the special education cap from 15% to 16%. We have yet to see exactly what that's going to do for us. We're kind of been running exactly at 15 and shaking your head no, meaning nothing. Okay, probably not much, if any. They did establish artificial intelligence is getting bigger, so they decided to do a task force. We'll see what comes out of that. That's more about talking, not really about any money. There is a trend going on, which we need to kind of figure out as we go forward. The legislature is wanting to, convert all the school buses to electric buses at some point all along the line. And so there's starting to become money available. For us, Highline has a couple of electric buses, I think, but the other part is you need the infrastructure. So you need the charging stations, you need, as we've learned this winter, need places to keep the batteries warm so they don't die overnight. And so there is going to be money, and we can start thinking about. My understanding is we can get some grants to start thinking about how we might convert our bus, our transportation area. Thinking about that. That's obviously it's going to be something that happens over a number of years, but they did pass what didn't make it last year, the inclusive learning standards and instructional materials, primarily around LGBTQ issues in getting them into the curriculum and in the instructional materials. First step in that is WASDA, the School Director Association, is going to be doing a model policy related to that we'll get to look at when that comes out, and then it's kind of you put it in as curriculum gets changed over time. So the next one is the MSOC, material supply and operating costs. They gave us a pathetic like 2% increase, which is not even close to what we need, for us, it's maybe $50,000, so, not gonna do a whole lot for us. There are a couple of, I always kind of try and line the budget bills, these are like 1,000-page documents that have little, what are called budget provisos, little hidden gems in there sometimes that are targeted, for specific districts. So there is one in there that's like 250,000 for this year, 750,000 next year for districts with significant increase in McKinney-Vento students seeking asylum. So that kind of has our name written on it. And so, however, it does require us to apply for it. So
Yeah.
we'll get on top of that one and get the applications in. Another one that I think Dr. Pedrosa's latest report, we're already in, and that is there's some money in there to send some of our students down to the Capitol for a civic engagement program for roadmap districts, which is interesting. And there's not New York, but it's for the 7 districts in the roadmap, and we're already in on that one, so that's good.
And we're on top of the other one as well, so.
Yeah.
Grant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the last one in there, which is quite controversial, it's about $77 million for what they call transportation correction, which I'm still trying to figure out. I mean, it's a pretty technical, our transportation director and finance person had to get excited to figure out. There's apparently some money that, the legislature did not pay for, but they were supposed to pay for, which they're calling a transportation correction. So, yeah, it's too technical for me to figure exactly what it is, but they're claiming it as new money, and it's not new money, it's fixing what they should have done last year, but hopefully we can figure out. I know that's been an issue of, we'll have to work with our surrounding districts to kind of figure out how to grab onto some of that money. Apparently there's various technical ways to do it. Anyway, there's change of burden of proof in special education. So when students go through the process to, be included as a special education and getting an individualized IEP or individualized education plan, that's a big process that all schools go through. And in past, it's a thing that's obviously somewhat subjective, and so parents can challenge that sometimes. And it used to be that the burden of proof was on the parents to prove that they should be in, and so this year the Senate, or they passed a bill that flips it, so it's the burden of proof for that. If there's a contention, it's got to be on the school district. Now, the school district process should already include all that information about why, either a student did or didn't get a special education status. But anyway, there's a lot of kind of speculation about, will that cost districts a lot more money? I don't know, we'll see. But anyway, it's something to be aware, I'm sure the director is aware of it. Let's see, pays for college and high school courses. So, this is another kind of, we've talked about for years getting more college and high school going. So there's now the legislature will pay tuition and books for students who want to take college and high school courses during the summer. So it's another opportunity for us to potentially take advantage of that and get some courses going in our high school. And then this other one is another interesting one, the capital budget. So this is for capital projects. And it's including $45 million for clean classroom air, $500,000 for schools located near or under CPAC flight paths or air filtration systems. That's got SKU written all over it.
Yeah.
Actually, all of our schools,
Yeah.
but particularly SKU. So that's another one. Hopefully, that's another one we have to apply for and we have to get, but we get our ventilation systems upgraded for that. So anyway,
Is that 500 per school?
pardon me?
Is that per school?
No, that's total for the state.
For the district.
For the state,
Okay. Sorry, it says 500K per school.
for the entire state, yeah.
Oh,
Allocate, to be allocated to schools, yeah, unfortunately,
okay.
yeah. So that means,
So maybe like 5,000.
well,
Maybe less.
I think it will be competitive, and, if you can make a case, like SCU is literally right into the bike path. And if it's gonna cost, whatever, 30,000, they presumably, and we'd have, I don't know exactly who's gonna, administer this grant, but that should go higher, but that's, Yeah, so, right,
There's not a lot of schools under CTAC like that, I mean, it's
right,
work here anyway.
right, right, so we'd probably be competing,
And
for
there's a few of
example,
them, yeah,
potentially with schools in Highline. and-
yeah.
So that's where we have to kind of get in there with.
Yeah.
Start
They
elbows.
can start to do that.
Okay, so that's it.
Well, I know like, while these numbers are small, even small numbers are, you know, little chips away at the progress that we need to make. We're keeping us up to date on those. Okay, so we'll move to approve the consent agenda.
Second,
All in favor?
I,
All right, so to our board discussion, we have 2 items for our board discussion. One of them, actually, well, the board meetings. So the first one is just kind of wanted to check in with folks about the structure of our meetings. So was it last year, the end of 2022? We kind of started to talk about what it would look like to restructure our meetings. One, to provide more space within a work session to really dive deeply into the topic that we were looking at, the report that we were seeing, and to increase opportunities for folks, whether that be staff who are implementing the report that we're talking about, or external folks coming in, but to really like have just more face time with folks. So we extended, in addition to that, we also kind of reevaluated what were at the time monthly Saturday sessions, to minimize those, really for 2 reasons. One, because a monthly Saturday is a lot for everyone. And I know I certainly had some strong feelings about really requiring the school team, the administrative team to come in to work on a Saturday, when they've already, of course, put in more than their due time, during the week. And so trying to limit how often we were asking folks to do that. And then, for some reason, they were also always falling on a long holiday weekend. So then we were often pressed to be here and present, even if we would have otherwise been doing other things, for a long weekend. So anyway, so we restructured some of those meetings. So I just kind of wanted to check in with folks about how it's feeling and then offer one adjustment. We are kind of finding that the work sessions are doing exactly what they intended. We're really diving deep into the content, but I think we don't really have enough time. And so one of the potential solutions I wanted to offer is extending our work session by 1 hour. So on the weeks where we have that work session that's currently scheduled 3 to 5, going and changing that from 3 to 6. In part, it's because we are taking all of our time at work sessions already, and sometimes even having to like table a topic, time for it. And of course, a lot of that's because we're taking a lot of extra time really diving into budget, right? So it could be that a year from now, that maybe 2 years from now, we're not inviting conditions anymore, that shifts. We're spending less time really talking about the budget. We can shorten those meetings again. So there's that. And then the one other thing, and then I want to hear from all of you, of course. The other thing is in doing that, what we have realized is that it's created a very long regular board meeting. So we went from having probably 2, I don't know, hour and a half to 2 hour regular board meetings to now, like as y'all are fully aware, your first few board meetings that you have been here for have come extended, right? Because we've really had to pack the agenda with things because we, of course, we want regular meeting. So there's, pros and cons, I think, to any format that we choose to operate within. So those are some of the things that were on my mind. What's coming for y'all? What thoughts do y'all have?
I'd be fine with adding without. The work session. And I agree, I mean, it's, I think the need for a little more time, particularly in the next few months, is gonna, unfortunately, it's gonna be there, so.
And I guess being Director Larson is someone who, was on the board for a while with the previous structure, what are your thoughts, just kind of like how it's shifted kind of the balance of time in our regular meeting?
I mean,
They've been
But having
about
a
an
session-
hour or two longer, a regular.
oh, but I don't think, yeah, I don't think shifting, having a work session and a regular session, I don't think that's the cause of having longer work session. I think it's just the workload of what
There's just a lot.
there's a lot going on right now, I think is, and I think that will probably continue for a while until we get over the financial challenge. But I think that's just, you know, it's not a reflection of changing, I don't think, but
Maybe just all concentrated at the same time.
yeah, right.
So where maybe,
Exactly.
yeah. Must be happening.
I'm fine with going with the extra hour as long as, which is very specific of what we're, the time that we're being used, that we're using it to get things solved sometimes, sometimes talk about things. It's come to a point, be able to move on. Or at least if we're going to table something, that bring it up to the next one, and then, we have that time, then we solve it, move to the next one. Sometime we're getting back up and then.
Yeah, makes sense. I think there's some things that we can do too, like something else over the work session where we do kind of just spend a lot of time dialoguing about it. We could essentially say to, the superintendent, at our regular board meeting, we'd like to report out on the progress and what kind of objectives or outcomes have been taken from our work session. So, I agree with you, like, I think you can't just talk about things, right? Sometimes we need to have an objective that we're maybe getting to, and at the same time, that's not always possible, right? There's always people, some knuckles are in a work session.
As well. And even so what he brought up right now, just the monies that's gonna be there, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, who's responsible for finding that money, and when are we gonna hear back about it if we got that money, right? So things like that, just simple, not simple, somebody's gotta go do it, but a request and a timeline of which it can be reported back to, what I mean? I don't wanna. There's so many things that happen, we need to be able to delegate something, and then it's the responsibility of somebody, I know that person, the name of that person, and they're able to report it back in a good time fashion. Instead of us going, oh, well, we remember this from 2 board meetings ago, or we've asked for this, and it hasn't come, how come? So that the only thing that I want, or, at this point, to help me, is the list of accountability of who it's been passed to, that person's name, and they're responsible to do it, and then if that can come in some sort of format, like emailed out, say, okay, this was from here, this is who said they would be responsible for it, then we can go back and do it. They just want the responsibility and accountability to be real clear, that would be helpful.
I think it would be, probably vital, let me know if this is true or not, like, obviously, we talk about lots of things,
Right.
right? So if maybe we could be really clear with, this is the thing that I would like that accountability structure understanding of. And then I think that can be something we follow on a Monday report or something like that, because again, like, if we expected that, I think with every single item that we were talking about, I feel like that would be just then bogging down with administrative things rather than like doing, right, the work. But there's a balance, I think, right? So I think just being clear, if we can be more clear about when we specifically need that, or we don't. Would you feel like the structure is working, and then we should be a little bit more clear about the follow-up?
Two points. I'm for it. I would probably entertain adding the hour on the front end. 2, instead of 3 to 6 on a Saturday.
On Tuesday,
You said a Tuesday.
whichever
I
Tuesday.
thought you were on the Saturday. But also, I echo the sentiments of Director Simpson. But action items should have concrete accountability points. Otherwise, we just spent 3 hours talking about stuff. And there are things that need to be discussed. more time to get nothing done, it is the best use of time. And not everything can get done, but part of tracking it, part of that's what the finding thing is about with the money. To have some, I'm all right, I can give another hour, but not to not get nothing done. That's not the best use of my time, or our time, or the, district's resources. It's not the best use of it, so, and that's not a critique, I'm saying, let's put that in that. Let's put that in that, let's put that in. Alright, so what are some of the action items that we can report on, and that we can be intentional in our meetings to know that we have to come with progress, of some of the stuff's outside of us, but we feel like we're making the best use of the time. As opposed to, and there are some things that we need to brainstorm over us later. And some collective wisdom on some challenging decisions. There are some things that we need to check off and move on. I thought we were talking about Saturday, Saturday, but oh no, not another hour.
I think Saturdays all day.
Yeah, Saturdays become challenging.
Saturdays are hard, which is definitely where we minimize them from from once a month to once a quarter, and I'm not even sure that they're once a quarter. I think it's at this point, it's like, when do we need to do something that's maybe separate from kind of like the general work, for instance, the board self-evaluation, the superintendent evaluation, things like that, you know, are kind of outside the normal business of, you know, just kind of keeping the district running, but also a really important part of, so we have to have some space and time to do that. So that's what we've shifted to using those Saturday sessions for, and those are.
I will add this, we can increase the efficacy of the Tuesday meetings. Some things are time sensitive, but some of the meetings are a bit audacious in trying to get all that stuff done in one meeting. I know there's certain things that are time sensitive, but sometimes we had a whole lot. And we should try to bite that much effort. Cause they have been protracted, but yeah, that's part of it. Keep up the good work. But I have to try to, I'll give another hour, but I think it works.
I think we, as the board, have to determine what that means, right, what that looks like. And so that then we can say to Dr. Joseph, this is what we need from you related to this issue,
Yeah, I guess that my own suggestion was if there's specific items that any board member wants to hear a result of, or action of, then you should probably feed that into the agenda meeting that, you know, the president, vice president have to feed that to them, and then you can include it in the agenda. And sometimes, like you're saying, if Dr. Rosen does, I mean, she can just include a report in her weekly status report. Yeah, which is done, and then, you know, we don't even need, but obviously they need to know, you know, okay, what are the ones that, you know.
I mean, ultimately, like when I think about the meeting structure, I have like my two probably primary goals and are like, how do we make sure that we're being efficient with our time and making the, you know, doing what we need to do to keep the district moving. And at the same time, also trying to figure out how can we continue to make this position sitting here more and more accessible, excuse me, and for folks that might want to step into this role in the future, right? So, you know, when we're having, you know, so, you know, thinking more and more about like how are we, can we continue to eliminate some barriers, whether that's time or whether that's whatever, within the structure of our meetings. So I'm all about figuring out how we can be more efficient and how we can make sure that we're actually tackling the business we need to. Yeah.
And I don't want you to feel like you have to defend that. You're just like, okay, let's figure out how we gotta do this. Best use of it. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, so we'll officially make that change. So we'll add that extra hour to the work session Tuesdays. Okay.
At 2, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry. 3 to 6, 3 to 6.
3 to 6.
Great pizza.
Okay, the next thing, is the board budget priorities and budget philosophy. So we're just gonna kind of talk really high level at this, and then we're gonna spend time at our April 9th work session, probably the whole hour, finalizing this. So basically, we have it's not a request, it's a stipulation from OSPI, that we must submit ranked board budget philosophy, and our ranked board priorities. So I know at our last, work session where we dove into these things, we talked a lot about it. We didn't get as much concretely written down as I hoped that we would, and that's okay. But we need to now. As in now, I don't necessarily mean in this meeting specifically, but between now and April 9th, and then we have to be ready to have a good conversation on it. So, we did decide at that last meeting, though we didn't vote on them, so that was just a work session, but we did agree that the philosophy, still felt true. What is not maybe reflected specifically is the order with which those are written. So one of the things I was thinking for this one is, Director Larson, when you do we submit legislative proposals to WASDA, you do a ranking system, and you ask us each to rank what our, priorities are. I was thinking of doing something similar. So basically, I create like a spreadsheet that would kind of help us. Basically, I need everybody to rank these in their order of priority. And
So you said, you said OSPI insists that we rank.
so
I don't believe that's true.
so we have to submit to OSPI as a part of our binding conditions. Can you explain it better than what I am?
Yeah, so it's in the letter that we need to send the board priorities running order. And then by April 15th.
The board philosophy and the board priorities in rank order, whatever those may be,
That's,
as well as the fiscal year.
yeah, that's. Which letter was that? Was that the letter that came from, or the signed by?
So let's be on my new commission.
Oh, yeah.
I'll find them.
Yeah, I would, strongly, so. Like idea around, the, budget priorities, I mean, the budget philosophy, so they're not saying rank budget philosophy, I mean, budget philosophy is kind of I don't think it's a rank.
If you want, we can try and circle back to them.
Yeah.
That is what we're finding the letter.
Okay.
That is, this letter specifically calls out ranked board priorities and ranked.
Not philosophy, the board priorities,
Priorities.
Okay, not the philosophy.
not the philosophy.
Okay, well, I still have, the problem with doing, a ranked. I mean, the document that we,
Ranked board budget priorities. It says the school board will create a plan to address this, is that okay, guys?
Yeah.
So I'll just read it. Number 7, the school board will create a plan to address fiscal stabilization requirements to Puget Sound ESB and OSPI for review by April 15, 2024. The plan will include ranked board budget priorities and budget philosophy documents.
okay, so the budget philosophy is not ranked. But
No, the budget philosophy is not ranked,
yeah,
but
that's, yeah.
but the budget priorities are ranked.
See, the problem I have with that is, the way we've approached, the budget priorities is we've listed a bunch of different things. And, to do it, first of all, to do a rank priority, that's an either or kind of way of looking, this one's number one or this one's number one. And, we need our transformation training and so forth says that we need to be doing more ands. So to me, when you're talking about things like, social emotional learning versus academics. Okay, this to me is a balancing thing, and it's not, you don't establish. And I mean, districts do multiple things, many things at one time. And to me, it's about the balancing of it. So to me, this argument has always been, here are things that we think are important, okay, now superintendent, take a look at the situation, it's a dynamic situation, there's opportunities that come up, so the force. You know, I mean, I'd like to go, talk to whoever insisted, is that ranked? I mean, that doesn't make any sense to me, I mean, because you're gonna balance a bunch of different things, and that's a dynamic thing that I would say is, I know, I would give a list of things that, you know, people think are priorities. And then, you know, things like, you know, we talked about Avid, we talked about different things, but now, you know, balance it, I mean, there's opportunities that come up, you know, grant opportunities can appear out of nowhere, and so to kind of, you know, to me, that's what I want the superintendent to be looking at that constantly, and then balancing it, coming up with what's gonna produce the best outcome for students. So this hard locking into a ranking, it just, no.
Yeah, but in the binding condition, we don't really get to have that say, and second, it answers the question of the parent. If hard decisions are gonna be made, people gotta need to know why. And it isn't a matter that all this is good. But you gotta prioritize why you gotta make and how we're gonna have to make those tough decisions. So when you're dividing the conditions, they're basically saying you haven't done a good job of doing that in the first place, so here's what you need to do. So I hear you, but we don't have that level. And so I think within it is wisdom, what you said, we still have to make decisions and wiggle, well, I don't care what the consequences are. Even the consequences of a higher prioritized thing that might be, that's in there already, but if we don't, I see it as if you don't start there, you'll never get to everything that has to be addressed could have a presentation viable of why it should be cut or, because they're all good.
Yeah.
The reality is the budget is, we're not gonna allow it. So you start figuring that out, and so that's why it's that hard to cut, Brian, that's the hard part about these executive decisions, that's why it's not easy, but I can. And we know that going in, that is not, it's worded as an either or, but all of this is either or. All of this.
No, I think all it's and.
All of it's and, well, all of it, here's the reality. Everything is impacted by where we are with the budget.
Yes.
And we shouldn't have to pit this against that, because it's all, but all of it is important. And you do have to prioritize.
And so it's not usually an either or, it's a little more of this, a little less of this.
Yeah, we say that.
Sometimes.
We say that, but the truth of the matter is, the highest cost is personnel, tenured personnel. Yet we can't cut the tenured personnel because of the union, collective bargaining. We know that, but that and goes out the window.
I don't think it goes out the window.
This is top heavy, staff is top heavy. You could get a teacher with less experience at a lower rate. Yes, you can, but the union is gonna protect, and I'm a teacher, it's been a teacher for years, I get it, but that and doesn't, basic math says this is how you can do it, but that and doesn't apply to that, because you're lying.
Yeah,
That's
you know,
where it gets,
you.
because simple math says, here's where the top is heavy, that's, since everything's affected, that's where you should start.
I think we also have to think about the fact that, like, obviously, like, I wish that we were working within a liberated system, but we are not, right? We have limited resources that we do have to then unfortunately have some level of prioritization, organization to how we are going to,
Make everything and
yes.
feel this pinch.
If we had unlimited resources, right, and we weren't working within this really bogged down white supremacist system, right, then it would be probably easier to make and to not have to do this because there would be enough resources to go around. And right now, we don't work within that system. And so like how, we have to balance, we have to figure out how we move towards that while also working within it, right? And at the end of the day, like, I don't know if we could go back, if you would like to try. If we wanna go back to OSPI and say, we don't understand why this is being asked of us, can you give us some more information? We can do that, but our time is ticking. So we have till April 15th. If that's something that you'd like to do, in the next few days, that's fine.
And I also would go ask them, what is your definition of the word rank?
What do you?
Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or, you know, 3 number ones, 2 number twos. I mean, I could think of a number of ways to do it, but I don't know what they, I don't know who put that word in there. Did we put that in there?
No, this letter is from OSPI.
Yeah, well, I know, because we tweaked that document before they signed it, right?
No, that was,
Because they were originally saying, you know, we need to get the 4% amounts in the first year, and we're saying, no, that's not possible, so. That kind of the second year, I think, I mean, there was that level of changes. So there's some negotiation that went on there.
but it's in here now. So,
Yeah, but I still want to know what the, you know, I would start with, okay, what is your definition for right?
Well, let us know.
That would, that you
take that.
John Welch signed that, right?
Yeah.
So I could, and I wrote that this people.
Well, let us know what you hear. I think what we need to do between now and April 9th, because we're gonna at least somewhat move forward, is if we need to come up with some priorities. So we do have, again, the previous document with board budget priorities, that was shared with, the full board before our conversation. We got down a few, we got down those 3. These are not everything, obviously, that were, like, that. We had a lot more conversation about a lot of things. But these were the 3 that I feel like we concretely all said, yes, this is a priority for us.
The other thing, you know, what level of abstraction are we talking? I mean, these are very high level.
Which
Is that
I
the level
think,
we're
I think
operating?
we're looking high level, I mean, that's what the board does anyway, for the most part, right? We think about.
I mean, in our previous document, we had things like, you know, the outdoor education. That's much more, you know, specific.
I think if,
I mean, to me, there's places for the high level, and there's places for the lower.
I think we can do whichever one we feel like is a priority, we can do both.
I think, yeah, I mean, we talked about additive, you know, and so that's a very specific one.
Again, like I wonder, and, you know, I'm not sure this is just me talking, thinking, you know. Avid is a program, right? So do we make a priority around a specific program? And then how is that us making a decision based on our own bias because that program has been in front of us? Or do we make a higher level one about programs as a whole and then trust the superintendent and her team to make determinations with the process or something, right? Clear, distinct guidelines and understanding about how those decisions are made. That would, I think that's more within our responsibility. Because again, otherwise, we are, which we do anyway, because we're human beings. Again, we all felt like we all were so impressed by the Avid program. We've heard from them twice so far, but other programs haven't had the opportunity to hear from the board. And I think to your point, Director Proctor, everybody, if they came and gave a presentation about their program, we felt like we compelled by every single one of them, right? And so I want to be careful about getting that minute in our board priorities because we don't see everything. So I think.
And it's, for me, some of those things, I mean, having been here a while, the Avid program over has been a year after, I mean, and administrations have come to us and said, kill it. And we didn't, and I've heard from students year after year after year after year, the value of this program to them. So there are some things that are, you know, kind of, have, endured the test of time. And, as far as Avid goes, I mean, there's different approaches to that. We can say, I think we saw it's what, $20,000. So, we've talked about growing it, so maybe this is not the year to grow it, but not kill it. So, there are certain things that have been around here for a while and have proven, and once you get them kind of to start up a new program, when things, there are certain things that are, the staff that's doing this program is extremely committed to it. So to kind of just unleash it and say, no, administration can do whatever you want.
So I guess then, what if there was a priority, and I don't know if it was there, maybe it's something we had the philosophy, but essentially, before a decision is made around a program, it comes to the board for approval, right? So that then we're still getting the opportunity to have an understanding of how a determination was made about a particular program and what the impact it's gonna have, both negative or positive, on the district. And then, because again, rather than making our priority about a specific program, but rather the board wants to have the final approval on what programs, because then you have the opportunity to say, well.
Well, I think what the administration was asking for was, give us your programs with 5 buttons. Because we want to know that before, so we won't come and say, don't do it. I think we can do, both of those things. I heard Director Simpson asking for around this was, can you please give us a list of programs, how much they're costing, so that, we can start, and that's something I've been asking for quite a number of years, and it turns out it's kind of hard to do that because our accounting system doesn't work that way. And so there have to be some work, but, showing after school programs, Avid, theater program, outdoor education. You can go down the list of things and attach dollars to them, and those dollars could be up or down depending on, if you want to, but that's a very dynamic thing because, you can't say, well, add $10,000 to this program. Well, maybe that's not going to do anything. So maybe, just keep it stable or something. And so those kind of, subtle changes, I think, are more, and absolutely we need to discuss them and have, when superintendent comes back to us, here's what we're doing and here's why we're doing it. And then the community can see that and they can comment on it. That we've never really gotten to that point, especially for me, is that level of program identification. So we can go out to the community and things they understand, because, I just had their list of like program codes, the general thing. Is, special education, supplemental state, basic education, vocational, middle school, schools. They're not at a level that the public can kind of grasp it. And then what are you doing? Are we doing counselors? Are we doing social workers? Are we doing Avid? Are we doing outdoor? That kind of level of program is what we need, and the public needs to be able to understand,
And I think all of that with it is in our accountability, or like our ability to,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Which I think is separate from what we're talking about when we think about board budget priorities.
Well, except for, budget priorities feed into that process.
For sure. So, but I guess, are we gonna be able to get?
Say it,
Huh?
we're gonna get what?
So what you're saying is we can't talk about board budget priorities until we have that list, because we wanna be as nitty gritty with the things before we talk about. board
I think,
budget.
I was just saying, I heard, not like Charlie talked himself, but that's what I heard, it would be helpful. That's why we kind of got stopped in the last time we started, but says he wants to see, so what are all the things that we're doing and how much money, but
Yeah, so I would argue, not in terms of argument, I would introduce the April 15 time stamp. If we can get that stuff, we can, but we're still gonna have to have this prioritized and agreed upon before the April 15 deadline. And that's not dismissing what you're saying, that's not dismissing what Charlie asked for last month. But on April 15, we will present as a board a prioritized list. In accordance with what's been asked of us. Now, we can do that if we make our mind up to do that. And I think we should. And I think people are counting on us to do that, to factor in what you're saying. We can make a better decision with more information. Director Simpson asked for that several meetings ago. We still have the 15th, that's not changing, whether you get that information or not, we still have to make those decisions. And the truth of the matter, in our working session, we looked at the list from the last administration, said it wasn't bad, we're gonna review it and see is there anything that's not on it that should be, something that needs to be moved. But we're not gonna get there arguing over the semantics of it. This is what's required of us, because it will be the tool to make those other difficult decisions that we can circle back on. And the citizens ask why, we can say, this is why. Not that all the answers will be perfect, but they'll understand the thought process. There will be transparency. And there's a template that says, just because number 1 is 1, doesn't mean 5 isn't important, doesn't mean 12 is important. Doesn't mean that. If it's on the list, it's important. And we need to get this work done and present to our citizens the difficult task navigating to get into this zero balance that they're asking us. Those are my thoughts.
So I think here's what our next steps can be. Dr. Larson, if you'd like to reach out to OSBI, the ESD, report back on what you hear around the definition of ranked. And then if there's any adjustment that they're willing to make around this requirement. I think I know this will be on our agenda to spend time on, at our work session. What I'm going to ask, is that each of us come with, at minimum, these 3, but hopefully there are many more budget priorities that folks have. Again, you've got the resources based on our philosophy, our previous board budget priorities, to come with 6. Write down 6. And then we will take those 6 and we will collectively then determine what our collaborative board priorities are.
The other point I wanted to make on the board priorities was, so our previous list was grouped by these high-level categories with referring to the previous strategic plan. And the other comment is, I think we need to use the current strategic plan, the 4 areas that everybody uses all the time, and use those 4 as the high level, and then put the items. I mean, some of them go in their multiple. That's pick one thing. And use those, and so, I mean, I did that myself with my list, but, you know, I'm not sure, I won't probably live here at 6, but, you know, that's okay. I mean, we could all read what we have.
Yeah, bring what you
and
have.
discuss it.
I think what I'm trying to avoid perhaps, and if we don't, then we don't, it's a collective decision, but is a list of 30 priorities, right? Because that doesn't actually, I don't think that's really super helpful when, especially when we're talking about expecting the balance of all those priorities. I can't ask someone to juggle 30 things.
Sure.
Like that is beyond the juggle that.
Yeah, but I
already have to do, right? So.
If we do it within the categories and then list whatever we want, and we come to that, that's fine.
Right.
And then I'll do my research on the rest. Yeah,
And let us know, because,
yeah, sure.
well, or
I think
if
it's
when you
pretty
find out,
solid.
give you some more clarity or
Yeah.
some more power
Right.
or creativity.
Right, that's all, that's
That's fine.
primarily what I'm looking for, and, yeah, I mean, your idea of putting ranking to understanding that they're all kind of important, which is, and I know, having over the years, I mean, you do research, so it's OSBI, and, you know, there's flexibility. So, anyway, yeah, we'll do that.
Look at that, I'm leaving us.
All right. Moving on to our questions only presentations. We'll just go in order, starting with the monthly financial statement. Any additional questions here? It is, it's cold.
It's cold.
She went up and checked.
That's the principal telling us to leave.
So can I ask,
Can I take that one?
what's the report attendance, that's a particular, that's the number I'm particularly interested in, it's on page 4. So what is, so there's different interpretations of the word attendance, is that the number of enrolled students who are there at any given day, is that what that is?
Yeah, so it's the average of the previous month, so.
Yeah, I understand,
Yeah.
but it's the students that are there. Now, the problem I have with that is that it hides students that may be chronically absent. That's why I like this other measure that the framework uses, because it said, what percentage of students are absent more than twice a month? And to me, that's a much better measure, because we need to focus on that. Because in that, those numbers, I mean, these numbers here, everybody looks fairly decent. But when you go to that, you know, chronically absent, there's a huge difference between Tuckahoe Elementary and our other schools. And that's an issue in my mind. So anyway, that's just a thought. I don't know if you can report that.
I can try, I can't make any promises, I don't know what the system, so I'll have to work with other people just to see if we can get that data for you, so I can't make promises, but I'll see what I can do.
Makes sense to you
Yes.
why that.
Yeah, no, it
Yeah,
completely
okay.
makes sense.
Okay, that's great.
Can you go to the next slide? But also remember too on that, it's just to remind everyone that students that are chronically consecutively 20 days absent do get dropped in the system.
Right.
So that's important.
And then there's just Dwayne and
Yeah,
Chauncey. and-
Absolutely, all of that.
There's a
Just-
whole, yeah,
But what
there's a whole
I'm
process.
seeing when I was looking at, you know, the data in Fairfield Elementary is that, which is not surprising, students that show up for school tend to do better.
Just help me understand how to make this.
Yes. So we actually have this titled the day report. So this is actually just a count of the students in each of the classrooms. So you have at Cascade View, you have 4 kindergarten classrooms. And so that is the count, the student count for those 4 kindergarten classrooms that they're at the very upper left quadrant there. And so it's basically just a listing of all of the students in each of those classes on count day.
So like that's what I thought I meant, and then I guess I was a little bit thrown off by like the 1 and the 3.
Yeah, I think that's a special class. I'll have to find out a little bit more information for you on that, so.
The reason I like this recording is because it's important to kind of see what the classroom sizes
Yeah.
are. If we get a classroom that's getting, I mean,
Right.
we got a classroom 29 at Thorndike, and you know, that's getting high,
Yes,
at the high level, and so then, yeah, I can start thinking about other ways to, you know, we just, anyway.
Yeah, but I think this is great, I just wanted to make sure that I think I was reading it right. because
Correct.
I was thrown off by this, such a small number.
Right.
And I'll just add one more comment, when we had the Riverton students, one of the decisions that was made, because most of them, those who Cascade View was getting full, they were getting to the point of capacity, and at that point, we did make the transition after Thanksgiving, December-ish, to move, consultation with Principal Croyle, to move the students to, and not the students, but move any new enrolled students to Thorndike Elementary School. They're getting up there, so that's why we're having those conversations again about what are we going to do next, from now until spring. So we're actually talking about that as well, so if you make a decision on that soon, then you'll see that fluctuate again. So you'll see it actually impacting Tuckahoe Elementary, if that is what we need to do at that point in time, so.
Yeah, because the other issue is also in class size K3 are particularly important because the state will give us less money if we start getting over.
Right.
Yeah, we've been monitoring it very closely, but I just wanted to let the community and the board know that those are part of those decisions around enrollment when we start getting too close to our numbers according to the CPA and the class sizes. There is about one more question.
Sure.
This is maybe it's something that you've probably explained a million times, but on the, actually the next page of where we were, it's looking at the ending fund balances. So just noticing that from January, basically, we're having a steady decline in our fund balance. I mean, basically, since September of last year for sure, but November, there's been a steady, and is that just because of the ways in which we've been catching up with some unpaid things better
Yes.
than?
A little bit of that, and then the way that we're funded, so apportionment isn't equal over every single month.
Right, okay.
And so we have kind of a bump down because we get our property tax proceeds in October, and then again, the big chunk in April. And so it's not the percentage we get for apportionment then kind of dictates, so you'll get a little bit less as we're getting into those months. And so you'll see kind of some ebbs and flows in those areas as well. So I fully anticipate in April, you're gonna see kind of a bump up in fund balance because that's when we see our property tax collections. But yes,
So
it's,
that's a pretty normal flow.
It is a
It
pretty-
just looks.
yeah, and if you look at the
much more sad.
graphs on this, on that page, sorry, Deb, it's on page 5. If you look at this graph, you can see that it kind of is pretty consistent. I mean, you have some gaps here and there, but it's pretty consistent as far as the ebb and flow of fund balance throughout the years. And so I anticipate that even though we're in the negative, we will start, it'll just follow along kind of in the same route that it's been going.
You think we'll hit that 0%?
In April, potentially, but it'll be for a very, very short period of time. We'll go back into the negative almost immediately.
Any other questions on this one? All right, moving on then. Financial forecasts.
I think I know the answer to this one, but on page 3, these objects 5 through 9, they say is MSOC, which, so that one was considerably more than the budget amount. Is that a reflection of paying bills?
It's a reflection of inadequate budgeting. So when I started reviewing the budget to where our spend is,
Yeah.
there was some inadequate budgeting that had taken place in some of these categories.
Okay.
Supplies is one of those categories that I noticed was really extremely low.
Okay.
But there was also some contractual costs in there as well, and so that's what drove that number up a little bit.
Because that's like $1.5 million.
Yeah, it is. It is.
So it's inaccurate estimating.
Right,
Okay.
right. I also do want to point out, I don't know what you think about the projection that we provided last month is different than what I'm showing this month. I believe I started showing it in this mechanism, and I hope it's fairly straightforward. ESD 113 has been using this for several years. They've had their districts using this for several years. And OSPI and the ESDs have been talking about how this needs to be incorporated into all of the school districts around the state. And I believe that it will be this model or something similar. And so I wanted to bring this forward to you just to get your feel of it, to make sure that you're okay with this presentation of a projection, because I think this is, there's time for us to provide our input, but I think this is the way they're leaning. And so that's why I did this projection model in this mechanism this month. So I just wanted to point that out. I didn't provide that in my documentation to you.
So the number over the top, like March 9%, that's an estimate about how much revenue.
Yeah, so that is the actual apportionment that comes in.
Okay.
Yes.
Actual apportionment of
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And they provided an obviously an uneven
Yes, they do.
distribution, which is another part to understand. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, I'm okay with this.
Okay.
Any other questions here? Okay, next is the budget extension for OSPI.
Page 2 of the revenue. Oh, the special purpose unassigned, you have any idea what it's about? I mean, you were there when you did it, when it was done, so.
I was trying to find, I
That's
even,
$1.6 million.
right, I even went back historically, because I thought, well, maybe we had a really large revenue in that category.
Yeah.
And so I went back to the previous 2 years and I looked at the financial reports.
Yeah.
And at most it was like $50,000 to $60,000. And so I don't know where that number was derived, when the budget was created.
Right.
And so as a part of binding conditions, as we're redoing this budget to be more realistic, I couldn't keep it in this category any
Right.
longer, so it was reduced. I don't know where it was coming from. I really don't.
1.6.
Yeah.
And my question when I saw it was that ever accessed before? Was
No.
that money? Okay, so it was
No.
it was just a budget line item, but
Yep.
nothing had gone into that.
No.
And the impact of that is overstating our revenue.
Right, correct.
And so, which at the time would have, you know, said, oh, well, not in that bad a situation. But, okay.
Yeah.
Um, the expenditure report. Okay, so the special education, yeah, on page 1 of the expenditure report, 21 special education supplemental state. So that's a large change. That's just. That's the money that we may get back from safety net?
Yes,
Okay.
part of
that's
it, part of that.
Yeah,
So
part of it. Okay.
we believe, and I may be a little bit inaccurate on the number, but we believe that we'll be applying for about $1 million worth of safety nets, that we think that we're eligible for about $1 million.
Okay.
My number may be off a little bit.
Yeah.
We're never funded 100%,
Right.
so I'll just tell you that right now.
Right.
So if we can get 800,000 out of that 1 million,
Right.
we're gonna be really, really happy
That's for this year, for last year.
this year, this current year. And so the funding would come to us, usually it's July or August, but that is our goal. And so, part of the reality is that the special ed budget also was inadequate. And so that was a large part of that work, was making sure that there was, accuracy in that area. Especially as we're applying for that safety net.
And is that, any of that money included in the projected,
Yes.
Oh, you did
It,
assume?
I did assume, and it is if you look at my end of year, my project, if we go back to the projection page, there's actually a line item that I put in here for safety nets.
Okay.
On the revenue side, I actually created, it's under 6124, there's actually 2 line items. I actually created a line specifically called safety
okay.
net. So you will see that in there as well.
Okay, so the 800,000,
Yes,
maybe we'll get more, but maybe not.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Let's hope it
Yeah.
yes,
Okay, but that's in the projection. Okay,
correct.
okay.
We're trying to make sure, so just for those of you who don't know what safety net is, it is a reimbursement amount allowable by the state for high cost special education services. When we make decisions around, services, restrictive, environment, all of those things, sometimes they come at a higher cost to the district. And there is criterion to apply for the grant, there's timelines, and there's actually budget requirements in terms of how we are invoicing and where those funds are coming through. So that is what Ms. Fleming's been working on to ensure that we can get the allowable maximum amount of reimbursement for those funds for this year. So that's what we're working towards. And also I thank Andrea for working behind the scenes on getting all of that done as well, because that's a lot of work. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, I'll go watch the resolution number 1047.
That's what you're not done yet.
Yeah, I'm not done yet. I was trying. I was trying.
So in the resolution, the 1, 2, 3, and 4, whereas, whereas worth of unexpected expenditures as a result of increased enrollment and anticipated additional expenditures as a result of projection. And then in the next one is, current appropriations amount. By appropriations, that's expenditures.
Correct.
Okay.
So that's a legal term that we
Yeah,
put in there
okay.
for appropriations, yeah. I know they can't be clear and just say, you know, additional expenditures.
Okay. That you're gonna bring to us next time for approval, so.
That is correct.
Okay.
So I believe the plan is to do a public hearing, first.
Okay.
And then this will, be brought forth again for, approval, or for your vote, I should say.
There's actually a perfect time to just mention it. The April 23rd meeting will just be structured slightly differently. We'll do the public hearing at 6 o'clock,
Yeah, right.
6 to 6:30, and then our regular board meeting will start at 6:30. Looking at for anyone who wants to come speak about the budget.
Thank you.
All right, now moving on to our in-person presentation from the union, I guess in person and also online.
How are you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good,
Used to be there.
thank you. I have a letter to read, and then I will give you all a copy. Oh, my name's Nick.
Yeah, okay.
Will families and educators agree that our students deserve the best education that helps them grow and thrive? TEA members, both classified and certificated, have dedicated their careers to teaching and supporting the diverse student population and families of the Tukwila community. But decades of underfunding by the state, as well as a lack of financial accountability and oversight from this board, isn't only getting away in the students' learning, but also harming the staff and the community as a whole. While we have new leadership in the district and are hopeful for positive change, we can't ignore that the financial situation the district is currently facing isn't new, but created over years of overspending and fiscal irresponsibility. Due to this, the district is now faced with making detrimental cuts to the programs, supports, and staff that this community relies on. We can't ignore the harm that these drastic changes will have on everyone. Every program cut is a support no longer available. Every staff member lost is a trusted adult who will no longer be here to support our students. We need the board to put the students' needs first and recognize the harm that we will all be feeling in the next couple of years. Moving forward, TA members ask you to remember, 1, to meet student needs first. We should never have to cut the teaching and services students need, but if we must, positions like administration that are far from classrooms should be kept before the teaching and support students rely on daily. Number 2, and these cuts hurt. What you see as numbers on paper, our students see as the people that they rely on. Their trusted supporters and faces that they can count on to be there for them every day. It's sacrificing class sizes that are already too big for even bigger ones, which means giving each student even less of our time and attention. It's devastating. The district needs to do everything possible to find creative solutions and minimize the impact. Our call to action is we wouldn't have to be cutting needed supports for our students if the state provided adequate funding for public education and this board practiced fiscal responsibility over the years. Join us in calling on lawmakers to fully fund our public education system and for the board to make drastic changes to their spending and oversight of the fund meant for our students.
Hey, Deb, huh?
Hi, everyone. I'm Debbie Aldis. I'm president of Tukwila Education Association. Thank you to Nick, one of our two vice presidents, for reading our statement. Are there any questions?
I got cut off. Was the question, Deb, are there any questions?
Yes, are there any questions for me or Nick or anyone for us?
I guess I think one of my, this is probably a pretty broad question that you may not be able to answer now is, what are some solutions that y'all have to offer, and recommend?
Say
You know,
that again.
Oh, just what are some solutions, that would, be in line with, you know, y'all's asks here? But what are some solutions that y'all have to help us offset, or, yeah. What recommendations are there?
Well, as we said in our statement, we really see this as an issue of funding from the state for the most part, and some bad fiscal practices in the past. So, you know, we do understand it's time to right the ship, but we really want the cuts to be as far away from students as possible. And we are willing to work alongside you to go to the state. I know Dave Larson has been down there a lot, Mary Furtakis in the past, and probably still. We've done some work as well, but it's time maybe for us to be working together to let the state know what needs to be done for Tukwila in districts like ours.
Yeah, I guess the one other thing I would just ask you, when you say provided adequate funding. So what I've been working on for years, what we need is actually equitable funding. We do need, you know, actually the term that the Constitution uses is ample, which is much more than just adequate. And we need not only ample funding, but we need equitable funding, which is on top of that, which is the key, particularly the key for us. So, yeah, if I'm mulling over, and Dr. Rosai are mulling over different ways to approach the legislature and maybe some regional activity around making that case to the legislature for the next legislative session. So, yeah, we'll definitely try and figure out if you know, you guys have some people that come and support us with that activity and come together. I mean, I think that'd be great.
Absolutely. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right. Well, thank you for allowing me to join you virtually this evening, and we appreciate the opportunity to work together as we move forward.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Sorry if that pause seemed awkward. I think for me, I'm just like, you know, my mind certainly wasn't sitting there blank, right? There's so many like thoughts roaming around. You know, whether I'm not sure that I feel clear enough on some of them to communicate them here, but I just wanted to name that, like, of course, I have comments and thoughts and questions. Again, I think I invited, maybe I could even just, you know, find the time to connect with you as well. Okay, thank you. All right, moving on to the action portion of our agenda this evening. We'll start with action item A, the approval of resolution number 946, which is approval of the WIAA membership renewal. Sorry, give me a second.
Second.
Questions, comments?
Oh, no, I'm still stuck on this, so I'm mulling it over here.
Okay.
Before we get on.
Okay. Do you want a second? Take a second from here.
I hope that we get another presentation, another time would be very good for you to come in front of us, because I would agree and disagree with some of your statements. So, but thank you.
Sure. Okay, all in favor of?
Oh, good. You probably, I don't see our athletic director here, so you may not know this, that, so the WA, this is the athletic, association that we become part of for all our athletic programs. I know from time to time, we decide what league we're gonna be in, and I think this is the year, if my understanding of which, do you have any idea?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'll find out though.
Yeah. It just. I think we've got the best, just a little history. We used to be in a league that was, had more smaller schools in it. But the problem was, that's more transportation costs because those smaller schools are kind of out in eastern King County and so forth. And last time we collapsed, so we're going to visit, schools that are closer to us, Renton, Highline, that kind of stuff. And I just, obviously that's a consideration for now as well. And so I just wanna, as we're thinking, I'm just curious about what the process is. I think every 4 years, we kind of rethink, we get an opportunity to move to a different league or something. So it may have, I just wanna make sure that our budgetary situation is being taken into account if that's happening. So that's all.
I'm putting in a question to Gabe right now.
Okay.
And that's something we get to choose or we get assigned the league?
No, we get some.
We get some?
What league are we in?
King.
I thought we used to be in Kinko.
Yeah, I think we are still in Kinko.
Yeah, I'll find out if there's
But
any
that doesn't
changes.
take us to Eastern Kinko.
Well, there's I'd have to go do the research on that and wait for.
I'll find out from Gabe and I'll.
I know
send
that
him
if you look at our league, the farthest school away, I think is Sammamish. And the Highline schools are here, the Rent School, if you just look at who's in our league, they're all relatively close, and I know from years ago that we, had to go out to some places. So, just wanna make sure that we're not gonna do something that's gonna cost us more. I don't think that's the case, but.
Yeah. We'll find out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's not, we're just asking you to agree to the WA rules here, so that's not.
Related point though.
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor of approving this resolution?
Aye.
Aye. All right, next is approval of resolution number 948, which is the appointment of Superintendent Dr. Kansi Pedrosa.
Thank you.
Any comments, questions? Just want to say we did send a letter to the community yesterday. So if you're curious about kind of the insights behind this vote, please check out that letter. If you can't find it, let us know. We'll send it again.
Yeah, I just wanna say, I know it's hard to be kind of celebratory at a time where we're having to do the tough work of budget cuts, but I think, this is absolutely the right thing to do. Because, if we, went through a whole big usual process of doing things at this point, I think that would not be the right thing to do for this district at this time. And besides which, even if we did that, the likelihood of us finding somebody better, I think would be slim and none. So anyway, supporting that.
Thank you.
All right, all in favor of approving resolution number 948?
Aye.
Aye. All right, next is was weird to move on to that, but okay, next is approval of a highly capable plan.
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments?
I think, just kind of people understand this, it's kind of a mechanical thing that we have to do to get the grant, so. Looking at the highly capable program and how it's implemented is kind of a separate issue, just checking some boxes so we get the money.
Yeah, I will share that we've had a committee that's been meeting all year that included general education teachers and highly capable teachers. Thank you, Edna, for those suggestions. To make sure they've been meeting all year long, and a report is coming to the board, I believe by June, related to the work and the recommendations moving forward. So that's forthcoming. So, yeah.
All right, so, and also thank you for adding that clarification, Director Larson. So all in favor of approval?
Aye.
Aye. Next is approval of the CTE courses.
So moved. Second.
Questions, comments?
So I'm kind of curious, I've always been curious about the financial algebra course.
Yeah.
That's been, I wasn't aware that, so that's, I thought that was kind of discontinued for a while, but you're saying it's actually being offered this year
Yes.
and fairly reasonably well.
Yep.
That's the course that's substitute for algebra 2, right? It's not the financial math, it's like how to balance your checkbook.
Yes, yes.
Considerably more than that.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, okay, that's, I'm encouraged by that. I'm a little curious, you said there's like 2 teachers teaching 2 periods of that, but there's only 20 students. I'm looking at, what is it, the response. And there was in the questions you had. Mrs. Collins is teaching 2 periods of financial algebra, and in the first semester, but if there's only 20 students, that means there's 2 classes of 10.
No, there should be 2 classes of 20.
Yeah.
Yeah, there should be.
Oh, there's 2 classes of 20?
Yes, I believe it is.
Okay, so this number here says 20 students, semester 1. 2 classes of 20 would be 40.
That's the average.
Oh, the average.
Yes.
Okay, it's definitely not
Oh,
what was asked though, for the average. I didn't realize that was the average
yeah,
either.
okay. Okay, so there's actually 40 students. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's, like you said, that's gonna be in alignment with the actual graduation requirement for financial education did not pass this year, but there's
It's
a lot of interest. In
Yeah.
it. I'm interested in it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of students are interested in it, so,
Yeah.
yeah, that's really good.
So one of the reasons I was curious about the specific number of enrollment, and then, one of the questions, like I understand that CTE, you know, that is a fund in and of itself.
Yes.
I guess what I'm curious about, maybe I misunderstand kind of how it intersects with BE, or not really intersects, but. So basically, like if a student is in a CTE class,
Yes.
how does that impact what we're getting for their portion in BEA? Or does it?
So, so for each CTE class, you get 1.2 funding for. For a basic ed class, you get 1.0. Okay, so if you can, and the CTE funding is categorical, as you stated, so it has to go to specific purposes. BEA funding, you have way more flexibility. right?
No, I understand that.
So when you take a teacher and you take the teacher off of BEA and put them on CTE, you're freeing up BEA money to do other things with.
For sure. So I understand that piece. I think I'm curious about the money that we get for the student. So if we're getting money
So what does
for the
money go to?
student for CTE, are we also getting, does that impact how much we get for them in through BEA? Or I'm probably not using the right terms.
Yeah.
It does impact. So if a student takes a CTE course.
Yeah.
How much less do we get?
I'd have to run the figure.
Okay.
Want me to come up?
I mean, it's okay. So I think. I think for me, there are some questions that I have around, you know, we're having the same conversation around the AP classes that are, of course, we want classes that are gonna meet students' interests, right? And help them advance their learning, right? And career readiness is so important. And at the same time, like, when we're thinking about the impact that then has on other facets of the budget. And so I guess I'm just curious, like, if we have a class with only a few students, is that a class that is the most fiscally responsible for us to hold at the moment? Do you
So
know what I mean?
what we try to do is we try to get an overall, if you have 23 students in a CTE class, that teacher's salary is paid. And then you have a 0.2 to do whatever in CTE, build programs, buy MSOS, that sort of thing. We try to get an average of all the classes of 23. Because there's some classes that you don't want like 30 students in, such as construction, advanced biotech. Some of our older kind of classrooms, our new ones are in pretty good shape. But there's a few of them, you just can't put that many in. So family health, for instance, is a very well-attended class. That's an average of like 30 kids or so in those classes. And so that gets your average to 23 overall. See, it's tailored to, you know, basically the needs of the student in the program.
But I just think in terms of just understanding the budget in general, so just like Running Start, right, we don't get full funding for Running Start, it does affect baseline FTEs for enrollment, so it's like at the high school, it's this interesting dance with the budget, right? So you have Running Start students go, that impacts our baseline of BEA funding. It's all interconnected, so but we don't get double, the point is we don't get double funding. And I think that's kind of maybe where I'm struggling is having like, basically approving these courses, knowing that it's gonna have, I mean, outside of the other budget conversations that we're having, right? To me, it feels like we should be talking about this all together, and then knowing exactly like where these courses and how these courses fit into everything else.
So these courses are just a menu that the students pick from. These courses may not even be offered because students don't sign up for them. So we only offer the students vote with their feet.
Sure, but we're gonna be hiring teachers for those courses.
No, they're already in place. This is just adding to the menu for students.
I think to be fair also, I mean, we get, if a student takes a CTE course, we get more.
Yes.
Per student.
Yes.
About whatever is 20% or something.
Yeah.
And we also get more MSOCs.
Oh, yeah.
Material supplies and operating, so the trick that I did find, we actually get less counselors. Which I've been fighting with the state with for years, but anyway, for the most part, we get, when you add it all, the net result is we get more.
Yeah.
Per student funding, and it comes to us. It's not going to, Running Start is a whole different, that's going to.
That's another, yeah.
The other thing, you know, you said average environmental science 1, semester 1, 194, average?
No, that wasn't average.
Yeah.
All right, I'll have to, let me review that and get back to you, but.
Yeah, they don't, some of those numbers don't strike me
I
as
don't have
averages,
the
but anyway.
Um,
The other big thing I wanted to bring out with this is that I think what you're trying, one of the things you're trying to do with this is start to get CTE money into Show.
Yes.
And that's kind of a big deal,
Right.
because again, that'll get us more money per student that takes the CTE
Right,
course.
and also develop more spaces for it, for students to get engaged with, environmental science, or get engaged with computer science. And then that follows a track to the high school,
Right,
like a 7-12 career track is what we're trying to do.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and particularly, I mean, I'm particularly interested in the computer science, I mean, that's a big one, if we can start getting them
For
them going, then in, because we've had a weak program in computer science in Showalter,
I know.
and this is the way
It
to
is,
kind of address that.
right, I agree.
Maybe I could just plan to meet with you, and, because I think I'm having a hard, like, I understand, but at the same time, I'm trying to feel like, what is it sitting right, and I'm trying to understand what that is. I think just kind of a general comment about both this and actually the next action item. It's a little bit frustrating when we are basically put in a bind to approve something because it's due to whoever or wherever a few days after our meeting. So I would really appreciate in the future if we have more of like a month prior to when it's due, so that then if we decide, so that I don't feel boxed in to having to approve this. Right, so we could have some discussion and say, you know what, I don't feel quite ready, I need to get more information, let's table it till the next meeting. But we can't do that with this one, we can't do that with the next one, because we haven't been given that leeway of time. So I think that's my ask across the board in the future, that we're really paying attention to what those deadlines are. and making sure that we have at least a full month. So 2 meetings, with which to maybe look at it and then approve it. That would be,
The other thing I will add, some of the ECT funds can be used for indirects, which can pay for additional staff not associated with CTE. So that also takes a little bit off the BEA budget. Such as possibly a counselor, possibly registrar, possibly assistant principal who oversees the departments, like those kind of things.
I guess maybe that's what I'm understanding is when we say it takes the pressure off the BEA budget, but we're also losing money in the BEA budget. So yes, it helps with like certain things, but when it comes to like the students are actually taking it away from general education funds, right? So anyway, anyway, any other questions, comments, concerns for this one? Okay, all in favor of approval? Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next is approval of the asset prevention program.
I have lots of questions about this. Is there nobody here to talk
Let's,
to?
let me ask you, can we get a motion first and then a second, no question?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, questions?
I guess my question is, how long have we been working with McKinstry? You know, as for the district wide, you know how long we've been with them? And I'm wondering, is that the only people that we've approached? Is that the norm with most districts that they are work with it, with giving their services? And then also with, and finally, just real quick, with McKinstry, when we have this asset program, you know, going into it, are they providing the repairs also once they've given us kind of the reports, or how is the relationship with McKinstry and Tukwila School District, and for how long has that been going on? I'm just
We
curious.
have been having McKinstry for a while now.
What's a while? What can you
while,
like in general?
say-
Over 10, over 20?
I would say when I started in 2014, McKinstry was already here.
So over 10.
Yeah.
I think they've been there as long as I've been here, which
2014.
is 16. So,
And yeah, in 2014, when I told McKinstry was already, you know, in our, I believe that there was, before that, there was a, bid for services. So they started as an HVAC services systems for us. And, we did go out for bids for HVAC services, and they came back with that. McKinstry itself has gone into other areas on the building systems. It has their OSPI recognized them too as well. They are members of they do work for items for OSPI. They are part of the e-commerce group as well. So they do also are part of the purchasing agreements with other nationally. So we take also advantage, and then also purchase agreements that we already use Are they
the only one that check all the boxes though for us? Is there other agencies that we can look at? Or is
Yeah,
that?
I mean, you can find a lot of providers too as well.
I'm just
this-
curious of being in a relationship with this company for so long. I want to make sure that they're having our best interest first.
Okay.
You know, especially with something that's been in for over that long. When I look at the reports and kind of met with them, I have some concerns. And so if you could, you know, talk, we can kind of look and see what that looks like and see if there's other, it's a big contract, you know, it's a big budget, so I want to make sure that we're.
So our primary contact with them is the HVAC, the preventive maintenance, for all of HVAC agreements, the service and the repairs and services for us. Our maintenance team that we have are not skilled, we do not have licenses for HVAC systems or operating in those. So they are very limited, so the maintenance department uses a lot of services requests or services for any services providing for plumbing, for things like that. So we are heavily into purchasing services for others.
Through-
But it's just not just like Easter, but we have several contractors in place that we use for all different trades, not necessarily, yeah.
Okay.
some question, to say, Tukwila Elementary had some water issues due to the weather temperatures on January 14th. As the outside dry system froze, so
Yeah.
when you talk about the dry system, you're talking about the fire suppression system, correct?
It's a fire suppression system that it's, yes, the dry system is the one that it's located outside the buildings. That covers, is a sprinkler system that covers the outside covered areas.
Okay,
Like
so, yeah.
underneath the basketball area here, or in front of the schools on the awning.
So
Those are the,
my understanding of how those dry systems work is they're dry.
correct.
For most of the time, they have some kind of gas in there to keep the pressure.
No, there's no gas
There's no
inside,
gas,
there
so
is
it's just-
completely
okay.
empty, yeah,
And then when the alarm goes off, the water is released
correct. You have a
somewhere
valve that,
into the pipe.
yeah, you have a valve in there that it pressures, it's in pressure, you have a compressor that works too as well, so it maintains the same pressure in both areas, the dry area, we call it, or and the where that water comes. So if there is any difference of pressure, then water will leak into the dry area. Okay, so with that said, if there's any leak in there, then and that's could be one of the issues that we're having, that we have some, you can have water coming through the pipes, or you through the valves into the pipe, or you can have just the weather itself. And then it will contain some water inside, and then the problem that we're having there was that the weather froze the water inside the pipes, and watch, you know, when the water freezes, expands that.
And so the question becomes, if we have, water in pipes that we know is subject to outside
Mhm.
temperatures, and we know that the temperature is going down,
Mhm.
there's gotta be some preventative measures that we can take in order to prevent.
And we do that, every spring, and every winter break. Approximately the 2 weeks that we have, we do inspect all our pipes. So actually, our company, our fire protection company was here, checking at everything in all schools. So a dry system, for the wet system, fire alarms, everything was done within those 2 weeks. So, they did check the pressure, we have a certificate that it tells us that we had, a good system in place, and they checked, so. What happened at that time when the weather, I don't know, something could happen, something could have a leak in the inside of pipes, but we did have preventive maintenance during the month of winter.
So it sounds like even the Director Simpson said, should be examining our, because they missed it.
Right, no, not necessarily miss it, because, I'm not sure if it necessarily means it, so everything was tested. The compressor was tested, the heads in the dry system were tested. So the whole system was tested during that time. Specific also, for example, like Showalter Middle School, we also had a problem there. And what was strange about it was also dry system. What was strange at Showalter Middle School, we have such amount of insulation on those pipes, and it froze just the tip of the heads at Showalter Middle School. So at the end, you have a head, it will, when you have something, the water will come off. So it froze all that. When the temperature went up and everything started flowing, that's when that rupture occurred. So, I'm not sure exactly how can I tell you, but yes, but we did test completely every system.
It's just, just from the outside, so we have failures in the admin building, it's failures in the control, we have failures.
Yeah, the admin building on Cascade View Elementary was a different situation. It was not the fire system itself. At the administration building, it was a water leak, a pipe that was close by the edge of the roof. So we have a metal roof, we have a pipe that goes by there, very close to the roof. The temperatures were really low for 4 days. It did froze that pipe. So when everything came again, everything right. So that's what happened on administration building. At Cascade View Elementary, the situation also happened almost at the same situation. We have a water pipe on top on the music room, at the very edge, very edge of the exterior wall, and that is a concrete wall. So there was insulation around, but a minimum amount of insulation in that area, and that had also burst. And so it wasn't a dry system or a wet system. It was actually a pack of water.
Yeah.
So we actually had to call, actually I had to call the water district. They showed up like around 2 o'clock in the morning to try to turn off the water from the outside. So that was a Cascade View. So it was a different situations for each individual school or area.
Yeah.
I will have a report, Dr. Pedrosa requested for me to have a report, a specific report. I will have that report for the next 4 meetings, so I can share that with you. Or specific tells us exactly what had happened with all those occasions.
So of course, what I'm interested in is how do we prevent that, that kind of stuff
Yeah, we do inspections.
happening?
Yeah, we do inspections on all our facilities. The administration building, it wasn't 100 years old, I think, that we were having an issue with administration buildings. So, and it was a water pipe. So when they are doing the reconstruction now, they have put a lot of insulation on the pipes that are located in the attic right below. So that's the only thing that we can do, putting a lot of insulation in there. The same situation at Cascade View Elementary, about the music room, we put the contractor put a lot of insulation just to keep it all warm if we get hit again.
I guess we discussed that for and that's unrelated. This particular item is just approving this report, so
Yeah.
why don't we wait and have the discussion?
Yeah, because I did ask William to give us a complete report
Yeah.
about what occurred and then what's next,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah,
Okay.
I will have it by the next board meeting.
Okay, all in favor of approving this item?
Aye.
Aye. All right, next is approval of the WASDA, thank you. William.
Thank you.
Approval of the WASDA position proposals.
So, I make this quick. So one of the things that WASDA does every year is they have something called a General Assembly where representatives from all school districts in the state get together and vote on various positions that the organization as a whole will support. And there's 2 types of positions, what they call permanent positions, which are more belief statements. And then there's legislative positions, which are more oriented toward the particular acts that the legislature bills that they can pass. And this year, so the first position that and in order for me to put those positions forward to to WASDA, they have to be voted on by by the school board and approved. So the first one is actually one that we submitted last year, and it's pretty simple. We have a position related to achievement and opportunity gaps, and in there it says, that boards should develop and adopt a comprehensive, and it says equity policy, which directs school districts to put place strategies and engagement practice where the voices and perspectives are included. Now, last year, so our particular policy on that is actually called the race and equity policy, and the reason that we added race in there was because our students came back and reviewed and said, do you really need race in there? And also because if we're talking about equity positions in this country, you have to recognize the racial history of this country. And so last year we submitted that, and it actually got exactly 50-50 vote. So we needed just one more vote to include the race in it, part of it. And I'm proposing this one to just come back and try it again this year, and one more vote and it will probably go. The second one is a legislative position, which this one's a new one, and it's related to unfunded mandates, of which, you know, there are lots that the state puts on school districts. And I didn't even know until just this last year that there's actually a law, a state law that says that the legislature cannot pass laws that require state agencies, including the school districts, to do extra funding without funding those positions. So, for example, the one that I have particular in mind that's impacted us is the paid family and medical leave, which the legislature passed in 2017, but they didn't fund is our substitute costs to cover that, which is a huge, it is like $700,000 for us or something like that. So this position simply says, WASDA shall advocate for and pursue litigation against the state when mandates are not fully funded. So which is basically just saying, you know, legislature, obey your own law. And this one is going to be interesting because I asked both WASDA and OSBI if, you know, did you know about this unfunded? Because I've been doing this for years and they, oh yeah, we know about it, but we don't like to talk about it too much. Okay. So anyway, I want to force discussion of this at the state level on this one. So anyway, in a quick nutshell, those are the two. So if I happy to take any questions, or we can just vote. And if we vote to do them, I would just submit them and I'll let you know what happens in September at the General Assembly.
I have a question.
Yeah.
On the first,
Yeah.
what was the dissenting? Because it's adding race equity
Yeah.
in there.
Yeah.
What's, if it's 50-50, what was the dissenting opinion? What is the?
Well, they don't, okay, the rationale, so these go to a committee, the permanent positions go to a resolutions committee, and they came back and said, well, you know, race is covered in other positions that we have. That was the rationale to vote against it. And, you know, my reaction was, you know, it's, if you're talking about equity, like in this country, you know, I'm reflecting our students and what we've done, and, you know, you really can't, you have to talk about race if you're talking about equity in positions in this country. So that, anyway, their position was covered somewhere else. So that was.
Yeah, so what is your sense of the real position? Because
The real position.
if that argument is because it's covered somewhere else, there's the legitimate response to say then you codify it and keep it everywhere. But that means that's not what you're really talking about. So in your sense, what is, because I want you to be successful, but I want to know what the counter.
Yeah, what is the counter?
Yeah, but now you're talking, you say it.
Yeah. That's what they say, and that,
Okay.
you know,
so
people are.
What is your gist? Is it, because sometimes this argument actually is around other stuff. Of course, we have racism, but
Yeah.
like even the equity, but the equity is on there. Sometimes people will add that because they have some other views toward
Right.
sexuality, gender,
Right.
and all that. So I just wanted to know what's the real.
You know, my sense, I mean, there's still, in the state, a lot of, people that, you know, and it's countrywide, that don't wanna acknowledge the history of race in this country. And so they wanna kind of sweep it under the rug and pretend it didn't happen.
Yeah.
And so there's still a lot of people that think that, and this,
And there
our
are
body
voice.
is reflective of, you know, the state as a whole, in school board members.
Thank you.
So.
I didn't hear a move.
There wasn't one.
Oh, sorry, I explained it first.
That's all right, no worries.
So
It's so good for questions.
Hey.
So we can move, question, or vote, so whatever.
So, just need it for the record.
make a motion. Thank you.
All right, any other questions?
Yeah.
All right, all in favor of approving?
Aye.
Aye. All right, last we have approval of the K-5 math curriculum. Get a motion.
Second.
All right, questions, comments?
So I just, you know, I will vote, to approve this, but I do wanna say that. So the issue around, you know, the reviewing of the racial equity toolkit. So we know in this district and have been for years, have these large gaps between our white Asian students and Black and white students in math. And I think, you know, we need to acknowledge that and then dive deeply into what's going on there. So, I mean, I think to just, all you've identified here is ELLs, but there's a race thing component going on here. So, I mean, the first step, I mean, this, in my view, is attempt to kind of, you know, get our alignment straight, alignment of the curriculum with the standards, and we've done that before, and it's, you know, it's, I think, we talked about her scope and sequence on, so that's absolutely a critical first step. But I really want us to dive into this more deeply in the race and equity toolkit, particularly when we're talking about question 3, have you intentionally involved stakeholders who are also members of the community affected? And so, you know, we need to start talking to our Black and Latin students and finding out how they're feeling about math, what we need to do. I mean, I think there's a lot of things that we can do to delve deeply in this area and figure out, and I'm talking with Dr. Pedroza, you know, a lot of the curriculum that's out there that we have available doesn't necessarily address those issues, but we have the opportunity through supplemental curriculum, through, you know, thinking about instructional strategies. You know, I talked about last time the, you know, NCTM is talking about this in some of their articles. And so there's a whole variety of ways to do this. And we have some great Black and Latin students in math and science are doing really well. They can help tutor those, you know, the examples and so forth. So I just want to make sure that as we go forward, we're really, you know, delving into that kind of stuff deeply, because we really do need to close these gaps. And looking at Tuckwell Elementary, I noticed, you know, that they had great growth in some of those groups, and so figure out what they're doing and so forth and so on. So it's just, like I said, I'll vote to approve this, but I think we need to do a better job of getting down into the depths of the race and equity.
And if I have a few points I can add to address that exactly.
Sure.
Okay. Some things we talked about would be the logical next steps are exactly on that topic, since race wasn't called out specifically in this report. We talked about engaging with the superintendent student advisory committee and looking at the health street data, the element of, you know, with the satellite data is the major test scores, map data is more like classroom-based assessment, street data is how do you feel, is this really into you? Do you feel, how do you see yourself, your identity as a mathematician, as a capable learner? I think that's exactly what you were referring to.
Right.
So that's one way we could go about getting actual student input on that. We've done at this coming next Monday, we have a curriculum council meeting. And so we will also be soliciting input on this and recruiting a small group to start gathering material, meaningful materials from other sources. It's quite good resources that we're recommending for approval, but we want to make sure it addresses exactly the racial identity. And so we will be looking at all sorts of state, federal, other districts that have good resources and pulling those together and then making it all part of our professional development plan for teachers and school leaders. Another is engaging our race and equity leadership team to also look at the same thing, developing materials that will supplement the core program. Let's see, and those other districts near us, like Seattle, we have, they've done outstanding work in this way. So I began connecting with the previous Seattle people to start digging to see what do they have and what can we use. Let's see. Yeah, so also I'd say incorporating what is learned from student input and reviewing other curriculum materials to make that a key part and roll it into our professional development plan, not just start of the year, but throughout the year and onward. So that would make race a key part of the whole.
So I guess that's the other part, yeah, if you could, in these kinds of things, they include that kind of plan. Here's what we're gonna do.
Yes.
And then we can, you know, check you accountability, make sure, you know, do those things. So that'd be great.
Okay.
One of the things I shared with the team is, we shared that maybe it's time for us to think about the racial equity analysis training as part of, or expectation as part of all of our, committees. Or any committee, whether it's CTE committee, instructional curriculum committee, all of these committees that actually have teachers, because I think the more we just do that as part of what's required to be on the committee, then the more we can make that more part of the work that we're doing. So I think that's something we're talking about happening. So,
The other part is actually, as you know, our thing says, says you need to intentionally involve, folks from those, because that was in the past, we had these things, check mark, oh yeah, we checked that as cultural comment, well, you didn't include anybody from those communities, so, not really enough, but anyway,
we
yeah.
talk about that all the time. Make the table longer. Make it longer. Yeah. Or go to another table.
Yeah. Do some shifting.
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor of approving, curriculum?
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
All right. It is approved. It's getting late. Charlie doesn't know between an aye and a second. Here we go. All right, we are at our last opportunity for additional public comment after this very in-depth meeting. So if there's anyone joining us online that would like to offer public comment, you can raise your hand or type your name in the chat. Was there anyone else in person that wanted to add to the list? Okay. Seeing none, give it just a moment. All right, as always, you can, you are always welcome and encouraged to reach out to the board directly with questions, concerns, thoughts. All right, well, with that, we'll move to adjourn our meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
All opposed can stay.
Okay, and Dr. Larson, I got a contact from Gabe. He says, we are still in King County.